Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. I, Blackbeard, start by asking for dark fruit. Chapter 1. Dong, 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 bell sound. Teach, are you awake? It seems the operation was successful. Touch your face. Feel for the missing front teeth. He slowly sat up and looked at himself in the large mirror opposite the bed. I checked my eyes, it was the person in my memory. It's over, I'm Blackbeard. How could I possibly travel through time and become this ugly Blackbeard? Impossible, absolutely impossible. I must be too tired from working overtime. It's just a dream. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. Close your eyes. Open your eyes again. Quote. Snapped, snapped, snapped. Slap your face to confirm. Sage, who was sitting beside Blackbeard's bed with a smile, wearing a white chef's uniform, a yellow scarf tied around his neck, and a pompadour hairstyle, suddenly rushed out of the cabin in panic and shouted. I'm super. Marco, Teach is crazy. Come over here and see what's going on. Inside the cabin. It hurts. It seems everything is real. Even though I'm a social beast, I really don't want to travel back to this chaotic era of great pirates. What the hell? What kind of situation is this? Why is it me? Gee, no, to be precise, he is already Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach. After some grumbling, he quickly accepted his status as Blackbeard. Anyway, in his previous life, he was able to feed himself and the whole family was not hungry, so what else could he do now that he was like this? Besides, have you never eaten pork and seen pigs running? His spirit, which has long been baptized by various online literature of the 21st century, is as hard as iron. It was natural for me to accept my current identity. There is nothing you can do if you don't accept it. In fact, as Blackbeard, he had woken up long ago, and before that, he had fully received the memories and situation of Blackbeard. The beginning and end of the matter is also very simple. It was the fourth team of the Whitebeard Pirates led by Sake who encountered a secret deal between BIGMOM and Beasts Pirates. Then the BIGMOM Pirates and the Beasts Pirates directly launched an attack on the 4th Division where Thatch and Blackbeard were located in order to silence them. Originally, the strength of the BIGMOM Pirates and the Beasts Pirates was enough to destroy the 4th team led by Thatch, but they did not expect that in addition to Thatch, the 4th team also had Blackbeard, who pretended to be a pig and eat the tiger. In addition, Blackbeard still wanted to continue pretending to be a pig and eat the tiger, so he could only hide his clumsiness while helping Sage and the others escape. Unexpectedly, Yan Calamity and Katakuri suddenly attacked, and Blackbeard, who was pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger, turned into a pig. The two attacks hit his brain and body at the same time, causing his soul to be shaken away. Fortunately, Marco arrived in time, otherwise it would be one thing whether he could travel through time and become Blackbeard. After accepting the memory, Teach couldn't help but sigh, it's so easy for this pig to turn into a pig after pretending for so long. In fact, after accepting these memories before, Teach had a plan in mind. Now that I have become Blackbeard, and I have this chance to escape from death, I will take this opportunity to re-establish the identity of Marshal D. Teach in the Whitebeard Pirates. Blackbeard, just be Blackbeard. As long as he trains well and gets rid of his fat body, he will at least still look like a human being. As for the missing front teeth, as we all know, in the pirate world, just drinking milk can fill your teeth. Moreover, Blackbeard's alien body is not only extremely capable of recovery, but also has a good foundation. In particular, his armament hockey has reached a high level of full-body invisible armor and internal destruction level. Before eating the fruit, the Vice Admiral is at least as good as the elite Vice Admiral. This is undoubtedly good news for him who has just traveled through time. Dong, dong, dong. Is this the bell again? Blackbeard frowned. Just when he wanted to study the situation that had been ringing in his mind, a series of footsteps came from outside. Ta 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 ta. Boom. Soon, a group of people rushed in. The leader is naturally the face that he, Blackbeard, is very familiar with. He has seen Ponyboy countless times in anime and comics in his previous life. The captain of the Whitebeard Squadron, Phoenix Marco, is also the part-time ship's doctor of the Whitebeard Pirates. Teach, are you feeling uncomfortable now? Seeing Marco patting and touching his fat body here and there with an anxious and worried look on his face, this made him feel a little uncomfortable as Blackbeard now. But he still forced an awkward yet polite smile. Ha 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 ha. Don't worry Marco, I'm fine. Nonsense. Marco, when I came in I saw Teach slapping his big ear. Thatch took one step into an exaggerated lunge, pointed at Teach with both hands, then shook his head and complained to Marco. Ace, Bista, Jinbei, Izo and others who followed behind opened their mouths in shock, followed by bursts of laughter. Teach still has this skill. Quick, Teach slaps himself twice more to give us a lot of fun. Teach, what are you doing? Seeing this, Teach couldn't help but raised his hand and patted his forehead in a fit of laughter, then looked at Sachi and the others righteously and said, Captain Sage, I was just upset that I couldn't save more brothers. When everyone in the scene who was still laughing suddenly heard this, their laughter suddenly stopped. Then Blackbeard felt that they looked at him differently. Soon Blackbeard felt the emotions of everyone through observation hockey, and there was a hint of respect in the eyes looking at him. After all, Blackbeard almost lost his life trying to cut off his brothers before, and now, the effect is simply outstanding. Seeing this, Teach secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the honest character of the predecessor Blackbeard was still very good. But I still have to thank Blackbeard for laying a solid foundation by pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger, which gave me an opportunity to take advantage of. From this point of view, I feel more confident about my future plans. After hearing what Teach said before, Sachi, who was originally a little funny, also calmed down. He stood up and patted Blackbeard on the shoulder, saying sadly, Teach, you don't have to blame yourself. You have tried your best. It's all my fault as the captain. I didn't protect the other brothers. Upon seeing this, Ace immediately shouted with hatred. Don't worry, Brother Saki, if you find a chance, I will help you fight back. Blackbeard looked at Ace and sighed. Brother Ace, it's not that easy. Things are not that simple this time. Ace heard this and immediately became dissatisfied. Teach, how do you make others' ambitions destroy your own prestige? Snapped. Before Ace finished speaking, he was interrupted by Marco patting his head. Ace, Teach is right, we need to take a long-term approach to this matter. After a pause, Marco glanced around the thoughtful crowd, then set his sights on Blackbeard, and said with a smile. Since Teach is fine, let's go out first. It's better to give him 2 more days of rest and don't disturb his cultivation. Everyone heard Marco's words and nodded in agreement. Just when everyone was about to leave, Blackbeard looked at Sachi aside and said, Captain Sage, I have something I want to talk to you about. Marco, Ace and others who had just walked to the door were not surprised after hearing Blackbeard's words. After all, Sage is like a beloved relative and friend to Blackbeard. Coupled with this experience of living and dying together, it was normal for them to talk about some private matters alone. After everyone left, Thatch looked at Blackbeard suspiciously and smiled. Teach, it's important for you to have a good rest now. What's so urgent? I'm still rushing to cook for everyone. I'm in a hurry, please bear with me. Teach raised the corners of his mouth, looked at Sachi and said, Captain Sage, do you still have the devil fruit that you grabbed from Bigmom and Beast's pirates during the last battle? Yeah, Teach, you know me. I don't really want to be a landlubber. Saki spread his hands, not to mention an unknown devil fruit. Then let me be a landlubber, Thatch. Blackbeard said with righteousness. You keep doing what you love. Sachi was startled for a moment, then nodded subconsciously. I don't care. If you want it, I'll give it to you. Snapped. Teach grabbed Sachi's hand and smiled. Thank you very much, Captain Thatch. Teach, we are as close as brothers, so why should we say thank you? What's more, this time you stepped in and saved us, so our brothers didn't lose. Otherwise, we really can't withstand the joint sneak attack of these 2 pervert guys, Katakuri and Jin. Quote. Thatch patted Blackbeard on the shoulder with emotion. Done. Blackbeard was secretly happy. As a hardcore Marine fan for 20 years in his previous life, he expressed that Blackbeard's development of dark fruit was too superficial. Such a powerful fruit should have a brighter future. Certainly, mainly because he has no choice now. Dark fruit is already the optimal path. With the foundation left by Blackbeard's body and dark fruit, his phobia of lack of firepower can be somewhat alleviated. Even if he encounters Marine Admiral level figures on the sea in the future, he will have a certain ability to protect himself. He couldn't guarantee whether his time traveling would have any impact on the world. Just as he was thinking about this, Sachi's voice did sound again. But, Teach, you should also know the rules of our Whitebeard pirates, right? Although I can control the devil fruit at will, I still have to inform my father. Hearing this, he suddenly started to think about it, and immediately smiled and nodded. Saki, of course I know what you said. Come on, let's go find Dad and explain this matter clearly. Quote. In such a hurry, Saki said in surprise. Saki, after what happened, I don't want to be so weak anymore. I want to become stronger right now. Blackbeard looked at Thatch solemnly. He didn't lie about this. As a time traveler, he has always had no sense of security. Especially for him who has always had a phobia of lack of firepower. Currently, in this world where Marine acts as a lackey and celestial dragons destroy a country in 3 years, he really feels too insecure. Now Dark Fruit is here. How could he miss such an opportunity to become stronger? Soon, Blackbeard and Thatch walked to the deck of the Moby Dick. Then, Blackbeard saw the Whitebeard pirate group sitting leisurely on the deck chatting and drinking just like the anime scene in his memory. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but sigh secretly. We are already in such troubled times, yet we can still be so leisurely. Do you really think you can stay under Whitebeard's wings forever? Why? Sighing in his heart, Blackbeard said that he would have to slowly change the lazy style of the Whitebeard pirates in the future. Otherwise, if the Whitebeard pirates are really attacked by Marine and world government in the future, they will really break into pieces at the first touch. In the past life, in Blackbeard's memory, during the Summit War, the Marine side almost rode together, and the Shichibukai even played tricks, causing the Whitebeard pirates to suffer heavy casualties. If Marine goes all out during the Summit War and the Whitebeard pirates are completely wiped out, it won't make much difference. Although he doesn't follow Blackbeard's path in this life, he doesn't want to pin his hope of survival on Marine, who has been the Celestial Dragon's lackey for 800 years to destroy the country. In the past 800 years, the Celestial Dragons had wiped out a country in 3 years, coupled with their game of hunting and killing civilians, which made him, a Chinese soul, have an inexplicable flame of hatred burning, arousing his extremely uncomfortable feelings. Memory. But he quickly suppressed the uncomfortable feeling. Now is not the time to think about this. After Whitebeard passes this level, he can truly gain a foothold in the Whitebeard pirates. Judging from the current situation, training under the Whitebeard pirates for a period of time is the best choice. La, Teach, if you don't have a good rest, why are you running out at this time? Just as Blackbeard and Thatch stepped onto the deck, they heard Whitebeard's laughter coming from the huge seat in the center of the forward deck. After hearing this, everyone turned to look at Blackbeard and Thatch. Hey, Teach, why don't you cultivate yourself well? It looks like it's really nothing serious. What are you two doing? The other Whitebeard crew members were very surprised when they saw Blackbeard and Thatch walking straight towards Whitebeard. Sachi looked at Whitebeard with his hands on his hips and smiled. That's right, Dad. Teach just told me that he wants to become stronger and wants the devil fruit I got some time ago. I agreed. Now I'm here to see Dad to witness it. Oh, after hearing what Thatch said, the smile on Whitebeard's face gradually dropped into his hands. He put down the wine bottle in his hand and looked at Blackbeard with a frown. If there is anyone among his sons that he cannot see through, then it must be Marshal D. Teach. One is because Teach also has D. One reason is because he saw that Teach actually had a lot of hidden strength. And this time, he was able to withstand the sneak attacks of Katakuri and Flame Calamity, the two royal lieutenants, which proved that his view was correct. Although this was nothing to Whitebeard, there was something strange in his heart. Now he heard that Teach wanted Sachi's devil fruit, and he suddenly had some thoughts in his mind. He immediately looked at Teach and smiled. La, Teach, since Sachi has agreed, I won't say much. But, you know the rules of our Whitebeard pirates, right? If you want to get the other party's devil fruit from other crew members, you not only need the other party's consent, but also the other party's captain's consent, and the strength of the captain of the other party is verified. Saki himself is the captain of the 4th team, so he doesn't need to take action. Then let Ace verify your strength. Quote, hearing Whitebeard's words, the members of the pirate group suddenly became excited, and they all looked at it with a playful attitude. In their opinion, this is just a friendly discussion between brothers. Ha 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 ha, Dad said so, then let me do it. Ace pressed his hat and looked at Blackbeard with a joking smile on his face. Teach, I won't hold back. You, be careful. Blackbeard immediately understood what Whitebeard meant when he heard this. Fortunately, he had no intention of continuing to block the pig. For now, Whitebeard's wings are his best protection as a time traveler. Wanting to understand this, Blackbeard immediately laughed wildly, then looked at Whitebeard and said crookedly. Thief, ha 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 ha. Dad, it's not that I look down on Brother Ace. He is still far away. Quote, wow. As soon as Blackbeard said this, there was an uproar on the entire Moby Dick. You must know that the previous Blackbeard acted as a good old man on the Moby Dick. This sudden change in image made everyone unable to accept it, and at the same time they felt that he was a bit too arrogant. In particular, Ace's popularity in Moby Dick is definitely ranked first after Whitebeard. Now hearing that Blackbeard actually looked down on Ace so much, all the crew members immediately started teasing him. Hey, Teach, are you injured yet? Are you talking nonsense? That's right, how dare you underestimate Captain Ace? He is an invincible Logia user. It seems that Ace is usually too kind and gave you the wrong impression, Teach. Teach, how arrogant are you? Ha 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 ha, you guys, you'd better go back and rest before you come back. Your brain must have been damaged by Katakuri and Jin. Ace, teach this bloated guy Teach a lesson. Beat him until he cries. He. ... Hearing the ridicule and contempt from all the crew members, Blackbeard still grinned and showed no discomfort. Although Ace was a little surprised when he saw this scene, he was young and energetic and couldn't stand such words. Hoo. The next moment, Ace raised his flaming index finger to lift the brim of his cowboy hat, looked at Blackbeard and smiled. Teach, I can't pretend I didn't hear what you said. The consequences of underestimating the captain will be very serious. You la. Blackbeard hadn't spoken yet, but Whitebeard laughed wildly. When he looked at Teach, there was already a trace of relief in his eyes. Teach, you guys, are you finally not ready to hide? You show it at this time, can you tell me why? Hearing Whitebeard's words, all the Whitebeard crew members had their faces filled with shock and confusion. Why does my father's words sound like that guy Teach has been hiding his strength? Is Teach really strong? Just when everyone was confused, Blackbeard said solemnly. Hide, there's no point in that anymore, Dad. What happened this time taught me a lesson. Let me understand that if you pretend to be a pig for a long time, it is really easy to turn into a pig. If I hadn't had a stronger foundation, I might have really died this time. Originally, I wanted to live my life in peace when I joined Dad. But what happened this time made me understand that in this chaotic era of great pirates, it is impossible to keep a low profile and hide oneself, especially in our Whitebeard pirates. Since you can't hide anymore, then become stronger. Coupled with Daddy's declining health, all of this made me wake up. So, I stopped pretending and showed my cards. The future of the Whitebeard pirates will be guarded by me, Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach. Quote. Quiet, deathly silence. Even Whitebeard almost showed Enel's shocked face. He never imagined that he would hear such passionate words from this naive and good-natured Teach. The other members of the Whitebeard pirates were also stunned. You la. Just when everyone was still shocked by Blackbeard's words, Whitebeard's laughter spread out in all directions accompanied by the powerful conqueror's haki and a burst of blue-black lightning. This made everyone who was in shock suddenly come back to their senses. At the same time, their knees felt weak and they knelt on the ground. The weaker crew members even passed out directly. 10 seconds later, there were only a few captains and some combat members who could barely stand still on the entire Moby Dick. Blackbeard, who was closest to Whitebeard, was not affected at all. Teach, I really didn't expect to hear such words from a guy like you, but I'm not weak enough to ask your idiot son to carry the banner of Whitebeard. Whitebeard's laughter stopped along with Conqueror's haki, but there was still a thick smile on his face, and he continued. If you want to protect the future of our Whitebeard pirates, let me see how far your strength has reached first. Blackbeard heard this, although he wanted to say, Whitebeard, have you ever been defeated, at this time, but considering that he was still the same Whitebeard 2 years ago in the Summit War, he decided to give up this inflated idea. HMPH. Dad, let me teach this guy Teach a lesson first. Teach, follow me to the island. Ace also got a little angry at this time. He couldn't pretend that he didn't hear that he was looked down upon by his team members. Hoo. After Ace finished speaking, orange flames rose all over his body and he wanted to fly away from the Moby Dick. However, at this time Blackbeard chuckled and said, "Don't bother me, Ace. I'm about to take action, are you ready?" Quote. Nani. Arrogant. Ace's whole body instantly became elemental. At this time, he was really a little angry. He raised his hand and punched Blackbeard regardless of whether he was on the Moby Dick. Fire punch. As Ace shouted, a huge orange-red flaming fist several meters long came to Blackbeard in an instant. From the perspective of everyone behind him, Blackbeard was swallowed up by the fire fist almost instantly. Blackbeard, who had his back to Whitebeard, just raised his dark right hand that was instantly entangled by armament hockey, and there was a purple-black air flow like flowing water on his entire right arm. The highest level of armed emission. Whitebeard, Marco, Diamond Josie and Beasta in the rear couldn't help but shrink their pupils when they saw Blackbeard's move. Although they thought that Teach's strength should not be weak, they never thought that he could perform such a high-level armament hockey so easily. Snapped. At the same time, Blackbeard's right hand, which was wrapped around the high-level emission armament hockey, directly grabbed the flaming giant fist that was coming towards him, and then he closed his fingers and squeezed hard. Tiskla. The huge fire fist was like a bonfire that was decomposed in an instant, turning into countless tiny flames and disappearing into the air. What? Ace behind him was shocked and exclaimed when he saw this scene. The other members of the Whitebeard pirates were also shocked. Boom. Swish. But before they could react, Blackbeard's thick body had already been ejected in front of Ace like a cannonball. Ordinary punch. Under the latter's shocked gaze, as Blackbeard's calm voice sounded, his right fist, wrapped around the purple-black armament hockey like running water, hit Ace's abdomen hard. Bang. Vomit. Whoosh. Boom. Boom. Immediately, Ace's elemental body was like a prawn formed from a bow. After vomiting out a mouthful of blood accompanied by stomach acid, his body turned into an orange-red stream of light and smashed through the guardrail of the Moby Dick, crashing dozens of meters into the air. Hundreds of meters of water splashed into the sea outside. Gudong. The members of the Whitebeard pirates who saw this scene were all dumbfounded, and some were even swallowing their saliva. They never thought that Ace, the captain of the second team, would be killed with just one punch. A real one-punch kill. Wow. After a few seconds of silence, a burst of screams suddenly sounded throughout the Moby Dick. Hey, are you lying? Ace has invincible Logia ability. What happened just now? Impossible, absolutely impossible. How could Ace punch that guy Teach and kill him? The gap can't be so big. Is that guy Teach also an Esper? Idiot, Teach is not an ability user. What was wrapped around his right arm just now was clearly the highest level emission weapon color. What? How is that possible? Even that guy Marco hasn't reached that level yet. Hiss, is it Odin's move? This guy Teach actually mastered it too. This guy is really hiding deep. No wonder Dad said that before. ... Bang bang bang. While everyone was still shocked and talking, Blackbeard had already accelerated and ran away. He rushed out of the Moby Dick and jumped into the sea with a pop. Seeing this scene, Diamond Chowsy on the other side tilted his head in surprise. What are you doing, Teach? Snapped. Marco raised his hand and touched his head and cursed with a smile. Idiot, of course I'm going to save Ace. Hey, I almost forgot about this. Chowsy rubbed the back of his head and said with a smile. This guy Teach shocked me so much. I didn't expect him to have mastered this level of armament hockey. Sachi also lamented. No wonder Teach was able to survive Katakuri and Jin's sneak attacks. It turns out that his armament hockey is so powerful. Eula la la la. Whitebeard laughed and said. Idiot sons, not only did you not think of it, but I didn't even think of it. Beasta nodded in agreement. Indeed, who would have thought that Teach, who usually doesn't even bother to train more, would master such a powerful armament hockey? Marco was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and then solemnly said. Teach, this guy, is able to be as strong physically as he is now simply because of his abnormal physical talent. This is the result of hiding his lack of training before, which is why he looks fat and thick now. If he practices seriously, Eula la la la. Whitebeard laughed happily. Perhaps starting from today, you will see Teach differently. Wow. Bang. Marco and the others nodded thoughtfully when they heard this. Just when they were about to say something more, they heard a splash of water, and then saw Blackbeard holding Ace under his ribs and jumping back to Moby from the sea. Aboard the Dick. Boom. Immediately, Ace lay down on the ground in an imageless shape and gasped. Teach, you. You guy. Are you hiding too deeply? I am completely defeated by you. But I will definitely work hard to practice and get back on track. You have to be careful, Teach. Ha 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 ha. After saying that, Ace suddenly laughed with relief. When the others saw this, they were stunned for a moment, then smiles appeared on their faces, and then they began to tease Ace. Ha ha ha, Ace, you look really embarrassed right now. Ace's whole body is now hard except for his mouth. Ha 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 ha. Hearing the teasing from his teammates, Ace didn't care at all. Anyway, he was hit hard by that punch just now, especially since he drank a lot of seawater. Now he is completely weak, so he can only show off his words. You, just laugh at me, sooner or later I will beat you back one by one. Blackbeard on the side couldn't help but sigh secretly when he saw this scene. Ace's character is really good. No wonder his popularity is so high. Now that he has decided to be Little Mengchang, Blackbeard will not give people the feeling of being arrogant when he wins. Even if he wants to be crazy, he is not crazy about his teammates. Now he and Ace are on the same team. But just because you traveled through time as Blackbeard, you can't subconsciously regard yourself as a villain. Thinking of this, Blackbeard himself smiled. Thief, ha ha ha. Brother Ace, there is no need for you to be discouraged. I'm 16 years older than you, so it's normal to lose to me. Quote. Ace was stunned for a moment when he heard this, then gritted his teeth and said. It doesn't matter if you are 16 years older than me. Just wait for me, Teach. I will catch up with you soon. Haha, that's very difficult. Ace. Blackbeard laughed wantonly. The enemy who is defeated by me will never be regarded as an opponent by me. I will give you time to catch up until you are out of sight. Starting from today, I will not waste time like before. Brother Ace, you have no chance. Quote, how can it be repaired? Ace gritted his teeth. Not only him, but Marco behind him also gritted his teeth when he heard Blackbeard's words. He looked at Whitebeard aside and said, no, Dad, Teach is so pretentious. I really want to beat him up. Kakaka. Diamond Josie was also pressing the keys of his fingers and grinned innocently. Me too. You la 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 la. Whitebeard burst out laughing. Although he deserves a beating, if you want to protect the future of our Whitebeard pirates, you should have this kind of power. In that case, Marco, here you go. Look how much strength Teach still retains. Quote. Marco also became excited after hearing this. He rubbed his hands and walked towards Blackbeard with a smirk. Hey, Dad, just watch my performance. Teach, let's go to a deserted island in the distance and let me see how much strength you have hidden. Not only did Blackbeard not have stage fright when he saw this, he was actually very excited. He also wanted to see how far the strength of this body, which had not eaten dark fruit and had not exercised seriously, compared to Marco's. After a burst of laughter, the two quickly came to the desert island and stood dozens of meters apart from each other. Subsequently, boom, a terrifying hockey surged out of Blackbeard, turning into a purple-black aura that was several meters high and enveloped him. At the same time, Blackbeard looked across and grinned. Marco, don't be as careless as Ace and let me punch you in seconds. Ace, who is being supported by Diamond Josie in the distance. Aha! Almost as soon as Blackbeard finished speaking, Marco's figure suddenly appeared in front of Blackbeard. His hands turned into green flame-like wings, suspended in midair, and his right foot was wrapped with a dark-armed color and he kicked unceremoniously, and kicked Blackbeard away. Teach, you guy. Are you looking down on me? Bang. Whoosh. Blackbeard also didn't expect Marco to strike so decisively and quickly. Although he had instantly used armament hockey to form water-like armor around his body, he only had time to parry, and his tall figure was instantly kicked away. Boom boom boom. The next second, Blackbeard's figure stopped after smashing several boulders, looked at Marco in the distance and grinned. As expected of you, Marco. This foot really hurts. Quote. Stop joking. Marco's eyes were focused, and he flapped his cyan wings, creating a strong wind and causing his figure to rush in front of Blackbeard again. This time, however, Blackbeard was prepared. Or maybe he was sure that Marco would rush over again. Therefore, this time, Blackbeard struck first, flexing his legs and launching his thick body directly towards the speeding Marco. Shoo shoo shoo. At the same time, Blackbeard's right fist was instantly entangled with the purple-black flowing armament hockey, and he punched Marco. Punch seriously. Marco, who was galloping over, did not expect Blackbeard to launch a counterattack so quickly, but his strong fighting instinct allowed Marco to quickly defend. A mortal thistle. With Marco's loud shout, the green flames around him instantly turned into a huge circular shield 5 to 6 meters wide, blocking him and Blackbeard. Boom. The next second, a dull sound came. The green flame buckler that had not yet fully expanded was dented in an instant. However, Blackbeard's punch entangled with the high-level armament hockey failed to control it and was knocked backwards by Blackbeard's powerful force. Whoosh. Boom boom boom. Immediately afterwards, Marco flew backwards at a faster speed than when he came, smashing several large rocks on the desert island before stopping. Wow. Immediately, Marco spread his cyan wings, and countless gravel splashed. His figure was suspended in the air again, looking at Blackbeard 100 meters away, grinning. Teach, you're hiding really deep. That punch just now hurt. Stop lying, Marco. Blackbeard laughed and ran armament again. Hockey rushed forward. Marco didn't hesitate and turned into a green-orange stream of light and fought with Blackbeard. Boom boom boom. For a moment, hockey overflowed, rocks flew, and the ground on this small desert island was shattered by the two powerful attacks. The members of the Whitebeard pirates who were watching the battle in the back were stunned when they saw this scene. They simply couldn't believe that the guy in front of them who was temporarily at odds with Marco was actually the good old Teach who was on the ship. Holy shit, is that guy Teach so strong? Hiss, Ace, you really didn't lose unfairly. To be able to fight like this with Marco. To be honest, I can't understand Teach. Why did he hide his strength before? Anyway, our Whitebeard pirates have added another strong general. Ha ha ha. Oh, come on Teach. Marco. He, Marco to pieces. I have to say that the atmosphere in the White group is really good. After the shock, these people immediately turned into fun people and started making noises. But Blackbeard and Marco fought from noon to afternoon, but there was still no winner. But Blackbeard knew that Marco's level in armament hockey was not much different than his own, but he was much better than him in terms of knowledge. Coupled with the powerful recovery ability of Marco's Phoenix Fruit. Even though they had been fighting for hours, Marco showed no signs of fatigue. And I can feel that not only hockey is consuming rapidly, but also his physical energy is also consuming rapidly. If it weren't for Blackbeard's alien physical talent, he might have been defeated long ago. Facing Marco, who is now 41 years old, at the peak of his integrity and still possesses the answer to the Fantasy Zone Phoenix Fruit, he is still a little behind. Especially this under-exercised body, fat, a complete waste of Blackbeard's own talents. I sighed in my heart, it seemed that I had to change and make use of this guy's physical talent. What a waste. Phoenix Seal. Continuous normal punches. Boom boom boom. After another exchange of blows with Marco, Blackbeard stood behind him, panting heavily and waving his hands. Hoo ho ho. No fight, no fight. Marco, this time I lost. This body has not undergone systematic exercise for too long, and it cannot support it at all. Hockey was also very exhausted and exhausted me to death. Quote. Bang. After saying that, Blackbeard lay facelessly on the ground and gasped for air. I have to say that Marco is indeed very strong. For now, even if I inherit all of Blackbeard's strength, I am still one move behind him. The only place that can beat him is armament hockey. Wow. Marco's cyan wings fluttered when he heard this, and the cyan flames all over his body instantly converged, and then fell from the sky. He looked at Blackbeard lying on the ground in the distance and praised. Ha ha ha, Teach, you are already very strong. Especially since you haven't eaten devil fruit yet, your physical talent is so strong that it makes me jealous. What's more, I'm 5 years older than you. I originally wanted to give you a good beating, but I didn't expect you to be so strong. Quote. Blackbeard laughed. Starting from today, I have to lose weight first, and then improve my physical skills. It would be great if I could learn some Marine 6 styles. Marco, who walked to Blackbeard, rolled his eyes and said. You are thinking about eating shit. Teach, how can Marine 6 styles learn to feed people casually? While the two were talking here, Whitebeard's laughter also came over. You la la la. Teach, you really gave me a surprise. However, if you want to practice Marine 6 styles, we do have some experience in practicing Marine 6 styles here. Quote. Dad, what did you ask from that Marine Rear Admiral's mouth? When Marco heard this, he immediately shook his head and said, I don't think that thing works. We've tried it, but it's totally fake. Dong, dong, dong. Feeling the bell ringing in his mind, Blackbeard, who was still lying on the ground, suddenly got up. He looked at Whitebeard with bright eyes and smiled. Dad, show me that thing, maybe I can really figure out the training methods of Marine 6 styles. By then, the overall combat power of our pirate group will be greatly improved. Quote. Whitebeard was stunned for a moment, then glanced at Blackbeard with a meaningful look in his eyes and said, Okay, you can come with me to get it later. Oh, by the way, are you sure you don't want to think too carefully about the unknown devil fruit in Sachi's hand? If you want, we can still try our best to help you find better fruits. January 11, 1518, night. New World, aboard Moby Dick. Vomit. Blackbeard made a retching sound from his mouth, and even though his face turned green, he covered his mouth tightly with both hands. What he just ate was the dark fruit with purple drop-shaped skin and spiral pattern that he remembered from his previous life. Although he didn't know if the devil fruit's awakening had something to do with eating the whole fruit, he didn't want to take the risk. After all, as an old Pirates fan in his previous life, he had read a lot of Pirates fan fiction. Many online article authors and post-bar owners have firmly stated that only by eating the entire devil fruit can one be qualified for awakening. Regardless of whether it is true or false. Anyway, he has a big mouth, so he can swallow a devil fruit in one gulp without any problem. So this is the current situation. Seeing his expression, the surrounding crew members of the Whitebeard pirates who were watching the fun burst into laughter and cheers. Ha 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 ha. Teach, can't I just let you swallow one mouthful? Ha ha ha, you are so cruel. That thing tastes as bad as shit, yet you threw the whole thing in your mouth. You are such a cruel person. How do you know it tastes like shit? You've eaten shit. Ha ha ha. Teach, take a look, what kind of fruit is it and what ability does it have? Call. Ignoring the teasing of the people around him, Teach let out a long breath after finally swallowing, then grinned with a big mouth missing a few teeth and laughed excitedly. Thief, ha 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 ha. Because just after he swallowed the pulp, a stream of information instantly poured into his mind. He immediately had a firm grasp on dark fruit's abilities, characteristics, and skills. Seeing Teach so excited, all the Whitebeard crew members looked curious. Even Whitebeard was very surprised at this time and said, Gee you la 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 la, Teach, with your performance, it seems that this devil fruit has pretty good abilities. Is it the one you value? Ha 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 ha, Dad, I feel really good. This devil fruit is indeed the fruit I value. I'm making a lot of money. As Blackbeard spoke, countless black energy surged up around him, making his 3-meter-4 height appear even more majestic and evil. Hoo. The black gas surged like black flames, slowly spreading 5 or 6 meters under Teach's feet before stopping under his control. Hey, Teach, what kind of abilities have you gained? Show it to me. Thatch, who was behind, couldn't wait any longer and shouted excitedly at Blackbeard. Ability display. Blackbeard grinned, stretched out his right palm, pointed it in Ace's direction, grinned and said, Thief, ha 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 ha, let my beloved Captain Ace feel it. Dark water. Quote. Sizzling. As Blackbeard finished speaking, a black rotating airflow like a windmill appeared on the palm of his right hand aimed at Ace. Seeing this scene, Ace instantly became alert. Hey, Teach, with this energy-like ability of yours, could it be? Nani. Before Ace could finish speaking, he who was leaning against the side of the ship suddenly lifted off the ground and flew directly towards Blackbeard. Whoosh. Snapped. Immediately, under the stunned eyes of everyone, Blackbeard directly grabbed Ace's shoulder with one hand and lifted him into the air. Seeing this scene, all the Whitebeard crew members suddenly let out a burst of exclamation. Oh, this kind of ability, is it some kind of paramecia? I've never heard of it. Tisk, it seems like a good ability. Can you easily attract people to you? It looks like paramecia, but if this fruit's ability is just like this, it seems to have a lot of disadvantages. It's hard to say, let's take a look first. Whitebeard, who was sitting in the middle of the Moby Dick, saw the ability displayed by Blackbeard. He couldn't help but narrowed his eyes slightly, but he didn't say anything. What's the situation? At this moment, Ace, who was caught by Blackbeard, suddenly exclaimed, his face full of disbelief. My Mara fruit ability. Has failed. Nani. As soon as Ace said this, he once again caused a burst of exclamation. Blackbeard said, Brother Ace, you were right, this is one of my fruit abilities. Ability to suck demon fruit power into my hands and neutralize their abilities. Quote. Hey, are you kidding? Does this kind of ability still exist? Ace's face was still full of disbelief. Teach, your luck is so enviable. Sachi behind heard this, with a smile on his face. Having said that, Sachi is obviously more happy that his brother has such ability. When I saw that Saki and the others were only happy for him, as an old sea fan, I couldn't help but criticize Blackbeard's behavior in his previous life. Blackbeard, you deserve to die. Boom. After being put down, Ace punched Blackbeard in the stomach and laughed and cursed. Teach, you make fun of your captain every day, right? But your ability is really good. It seems like I'm really lucky. Teach, you just said that your ability can invalidate the ability of demon fruit power. Can any ability be used? Hey, give me a try. At this time, Marco on the side showed curiosity. Well, it should be okay. Blackbeard thought for a moment, then raised his hand and pointed it at Marco. Dark water, Nani. In fact, he was secretly prepared when he saw the black air spinning like a black electric fan in Blackbeard's palm, but he was still sucked off the ground in an instant, and was sucked into Blackbeard's hand in the blink of an eye. Snapped. Just like Ace before, Marco was easily caught in midair by Blackbeard. Marco, how are your abilities? Can you still use them? Diamond Josie, who was behind, saw this scene and immediately asked. Hey, are you kidding me? My Phoenix ability is completely disabled. Marco looked stunned. It feels like being locked by a sea stone. Wow, the Whitebeard pirates, who were originally a little confused because of Ace's situation, were completely shocked when they saw that even Marco's abilities were disabled. This ability is simply the nemesis of demon fruit power. But what really shocked them was just the beginning. Blackbeard suddenly turned his head and looked at Whitebeard behind him, grinning. Dad, have you ever been defeated? Wow. As soon as Blackbeard said this, there was an uproar on the entire Moby Dick. Before anyone could say anything, Whitebeard laughed heartily and said, "You la. Teach kid, what do you want to do? Is it possible that I just bloated after eating devil fruit? If you want to defeat me, you are still far away." Quote. Blackbeard also grinned. It's just a laugh. I thought to myself, this idea was too smooth, and I couldn't stop myself from thinking, Old Master, have you ever been defeated? It almost didn't end well. He immediately smiled and said, "Of course I don't mean that, Dad, I just want to see if my ability has any effect on your shock fruit." Oh, after hearing Blackbeard's words, Whitebeard also became interested. The other Whitebeard crew members also looked curious. Then let's try it. As he spoke, Whitebeard directly raised his hand and clenched his right fist. Then with a buzz sound, a white circle of light appeared above his right fist and he punched Blackbeard without hesitation and said with a grin, "Teach, Daddy, I won't hold back. If you can't catch it, you're going to suffer." Feeling Whitebeard's fierce punch, the smile on Blackbeard's face immediately turned serious. Hoo. The next moment, black mist rose into the sky around him, his right hand formed into a palm, and with the deep and dark windmill attached to the palm, he met Whitebeard's punch. Bang! The next second, the crisp sound of fists clashing sounded. But what made everyone feel shocked and unbelievable was that Whitebeard's punch that used to be able to smash the space now completely lost the power of shock fruit and spilled out. Moreover, the white halo surrounding Whitebeard's fist disappeared without a trace in a breath. Seeing this scene, everyone fell into a stunned state of shock. Even Whitebeard's face was full of surprise and shock. This is the first time his powers have failed since he got the shock fruit. He also didn't expect that Teach would get such an incredible fruit. Then he burst into hearty laughter. "You la. Teach, you kid is really lucky to get such a rare fruit." When it is developed in the future, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it will be the nemesis of devil fruit. Quote. Blackbeard also laughed happily. It seemed that the path he chose was indeed the right one. But soon he was surrounded by a group of white group members. Afterwards, Blackbeard demonstrated dark fruit's abilities to a group of crew brothers, loved ones, relatives and friends. Although when he learned that his dark fruit was Logia but could not be elementalized, he still aroused a burst of envy. As for dark fruit's ability to steal other people's fruits, Blackbeard doesn't intend to tell them right now. He will find an opportunity to tell Whitebeard this ability alone. These abilities are not important information to Blackbeard. After all, he may not only have dark fruit in the future. The current purpose is to gain favor with Baituan and pave the way for future events. Moreover, now that he has become Blackbeard, the Summit War will probably not happen unless something unexpected happens. Therefore, he is not prepared to hide too much from Whitebeard. Of course, it's only limited to dark fruit's ability. He can't tell anyone about the real cheat. At least until the times go crazy, being under Whitebeard is the best choice. After learning about the Celestial Dragon's evil deeds of destroying a country in 3 years and the hunting competition game before time travel, as an old Marine fan, he was completely disappointed and disgusted with the so-called Marine and world government. Especially for a Chinese soul, that kind of killing contest game will always bring back very bad historical memories for him. Now that he has become a pirate, the only thing he can pursue in this rotten world is the strongest and the transcendent. Especially after knowing the powerful strength of celestial dragons, becoming stronger is his only choice. After he demonstrated dark fruit's abilities, Whitebeard asked Marco to give him the training materials on pseudo-6 styles. Therefore, after returning to the cabin, he couldn't wait to start studying this information. After an hour of reading, combined with some information Marco told him, Blackbeard also knew that this pseudo-6 styles information still had a certain importance. Although this information cannot allow people to master all 6 moves, at least the shaving among the 6 moves can be explored by some sailors with strong physical skills. For today's Blackbeard, in fact, even having only 6 styles, shave is a huge gain for him. But the reason why he asked Whitebeard for information on Type 6 was not just for shaving. Dong, dong, dong. Just as Blackbeard was thinking about this, the grandfather clock in the back of his mind rang again. Almost as soon as Blackbeard closed his eyes, he came to this space deep in his soul again. There is darkness all around the space, and in the center of the darkness, a huge silver-white floor clock nearly 20 meters tall stands there with a silver light. Next to the giant clock in this space, there is a humanoid soul fragment wrapped in silvery white light. Although unconscious, Teach decided not to contact the unconscious soul when he felt that he did not fully understand the function of the giant clock. Compared to the unconscious soul body, it was the big clock in front of him that amazed him. Although this was not the first time he saw this huge floor clock, Blackbeard was still very shocked. This floor clock is called Traveler's Clock. When his soul traveled through space, it quietly appeared in the depths of his soul, and he learned all the information about this Traveler's Clock. Looking up at the Traveler's Clock above, he could clearly see the dial of the Traveler's Clock. They were displayed in front of him in Roman scale, 2, 3, 7, 8, 12. The scales from I to 12 are the directions of the hour hand. The minute hand points from 2. The same goes for the second hand. Through the information he had about the Traveler's Clock, he already knew that every time he arrived at a strange place, the second and minute hands of the Traveler's Clock would start to rotate until they reached a time mark, and then they would stop rotating. The clock will not continue to rotate until he, the host bound by the Traveler's Clock, uses up the ability of the hour hand scale. As far as he knows about the function of the hour hand scale of Traveler's Clock, each scale can help him complete the expansion and understanding of a skill or ability. This was also the reason why he was so obsessed with reading the 6 forms information, even if it was fake and he couldn't practice at all, it didn't matter. Because the Traveler's Clock is the confidence that gives him the confidence to fully expand and comprehend the 6 forms. Coupled with his knowledge of Marine 6 styles from anime and comics in his previous life, and combining this information with the ability of Traveler's Clock, he is still very confident. Thinking of this, Blackbeard no longer hesitated, and directly used the energy accumulated from 12 Tai with a thought. Buzz. The next moment, when Blackbeard put his thoughts on the 6 forms, a silvery shimmer suddenly appeared around him and enveloped his whole body. After a few seconds, the silver shimmer gradually dimmed and disappeared. Blackbeard, who was leaning on the chair, slowly opened his eyes. At this time, his eyes were full of excitement and excitement. Marine 6 styles, get da Z. Haha, Traveler Clock is awesome. It was so easy for me to comprehend that 6 forms. Quote. Feeling the complete information about Marine 6 styles training in his mind, Blackbeard suddenly felt eager to try it. But after thinking about the current time, he gave up immediately. Even if you want to practice, you have to rest first. But then a thought occurred to him, and it seemed that he could practice some kind of practice while sleeping. Thinking of this, he immediately started trying. After lying on the bed, he immediately began to practice returning life. As soon as he started practicing returning life, he immediately entered that state. All the blood and cells in his body felt like they were under his control. First, the long curly hair on his head began to spread out one by one under the urging of his thoughts, and then several strands were rolled together and danced like a snake. The blood circulation throughout the body also begins to accelerate, and the cells begin to tremble violently. This feeling of being in control of your whole body is simply amazing. Blackbeard was excited. I originally thought that losing weight would require a period of crazy exercise, but now it seems it's not that difficult. After getting used to the practice of returning life for a while, Blackbeard's whole body surged with momentum, and his muscles and cells were trembling. Life returned. Following Blackbeard's low drink, the cells around him instantly began to move and position quickly as he had imagined, and at the same time began to consume cell energy to provide nutrients for the body. Immediately afterwards, Blackbeard's 344 centimeters thick body was wrapped in the mist evaporating from the cells. If someone is in the cabin, they can see that Blackbeard's thick body is slowly becoming slimmer, and the fat around him is turning into water droplets at a speed visible to the naked eye, floating on the surface of the body, and then being surrounded by the hot flowing blood into steam. All around his body. A few minutes later, the mist surrounding Blackbeard slowly disappeared, and Blackbeard's body, which had been adjusted by return of life, was completely revealed. If anyone saw Blackbeard looking like he was undergoing liposuction and removing his bones, they would definitely scream in shock. Standing in front of the mirror, Blackbeard almost didn't recognize himself when he saw the person in the mirror. I saw that the person in the mirror had not changed much except for the big, slightly sinister eyes. The originally fat and ugly face had become thinner, and the skin was close to a thin layer of facial muscles. Of course, as long as he doesn't grin and expose his big mouth with 4 missing teeth, he still looks normal and attractive. On the contrary, he looks very similar to his handsome face in his previous life. In addition, the proportions of the body that have been adjusted through the use of life return have become harmonious. The big belly disappeared and turned into a few vague abdominal muscles. As long as you exercise for a period of time, the abdominal muscles will naturally appear. The 2 thighs that were originally slender and out of proportion were just right at this time. Seeing this, even if he had seen all kinds of ruthless people who lost weight and body sculpting in his previous life, compared with the life return that he had mastered, it was like heaven and earth. No wonder CP9's Lu Chi can change his body shape so easily. I have to say that returning life can be regarded as an alternative magical skill. After that, Blackbeard carefully trimmed the stubble on his face and the curly long hair, which immediately made him feel energetic. Especially with his height of 344 centimeters, the feeling of oppression becomes even stronger. Then Blackbeard used the bucket in the room to scrub his body, and at the same time used life return to feel the changes in his body. After confirming that it was correct, he fell into a deep sleep completely. A night of silence. Early the next morning, Blackbeard woke up from a deep sleep. This is also an ability that can only be obtained after fully mastering life return. Not only can you fall asleep quickly, but you can also enter deep sleep with the best sleep quality. This is why life return in Marine 6 styles is the most difficult move to master among the 6 styles. To understand this kind of move, only a genius with extremely strong comprehension ability can understand it. Thinking of this, Blackbeard couldn't help but sigh at the awesomeness of Traveler's Clock. Because he not only understood and completely mastered life return in one night, He also fully mastered the other Marine 6 styles, even the secret technique 6 King's Spear among the 6 styles. Now he only needs to find a secluded island where he can use his skills to practice for a period of time. After becoming familiar with various moves, he will be able to completely master them. With this in mind, Blackbeard decided to report his training plan. After all, he is a member of the Whitebeard pirate group. If he wants to leave the Moby Dick to practice alone, he still has to report to Whitebeard. And he doesn't know which island is suitable for him to practice. Naturally, he knows best in Whitebeard's territory. After thinking about this, Blackbeard simply cleaned himself up and then came to the deck of the Moby Dick. As soon as he stepped onto the deck, some of the crew members who were still yawning because they had woken up early stared at Blackbeard, their eyes gradually widening. Everyone was stunned until Blackbeard opened his big mouth with 4 missing teeth and revealed his signature, thief ha ha ha, laugh. Are you, teach? Shouts of exclamation echoed throughout the deck of the Moby Dick. Within a minute or two, the entire Moby Dick crew was alerted. Everyone gathered around Blackbeard and looked at him like a rare animal, and then started asking questions. Teach, how did you do that? Does that dark fruit also have the function of plastic surgery and body shaping? How can it be repaired? If I had known it had this ability, I would have asked Saki for it. Stop joking. If I had known I had that devil fruit and the ability to become handsome, how could I have given it to Teach, you? Hey, Teach, your form changes are too exaggerated. My dear, I almost thought I was dreaming. God, it's incredible. Quote. Blackbeard, although he knew it might cause a bit of a stir, he didn't expect everyone's reaction to be so big. The most outrageous thing is that these guys are actually envious and jealous of him owning dark fruit at this time. It seems that good looks are hard currency in any world. Especially this kind of heaven-defying body shaping and plastic surgery skills. You la, you idiot sons, you don't sleep so early in the morning, why are you making such a fuss here? Or you Teach, Nani, quote. Just as everyone was talking, Whitebeard's voice sounded outside the crowd, followed closely by his shocked voice. Wow. As Whitebeard arrived, the crowd immediately dispersed into a passage, allowing Whitebeard's huge 6.6-meter body to walk into the crowd. Thief ha 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 ha. Teach couldn't help laughing after seeing Whitebeard. Dad, how do you feel about my new look? Teach, why did you become like this after one night? Does that dark fruit still have this ability? Whitebeard hugged his beard, and a thoughtful look appeared on his face. Seeing the curious looks from others, Blackbeard laughed and said, Thief ha ha ha, certainly not dark fruit's abilities. Dad, you still remember the information about Marine 6 styles you gave me last night, right? Although that information was basically fake except for the practice method of shaving, I accidentally understood one of the moves called Return of Life. After a night of practice, I became like this. Quote. Nani. Hearing Blackbeard's words, the entire Whitebeard pirate group was shocked again. Even Whitebeard looked at him dumbfounded. Is this okay? However, after the shock came the excitement. Everyone who originally thought it was Darkfruit's ability could only secretly regret it, but now everyone was eager to try it and looked at Blackbeard with shining eyes. After feeling the wolf-like gazes of everyone, Blackbeard naturally understood what they were thinking and immediately said, Don't worry, give me some time. After I have completely mastered the cultivation experience of returning life, I will compile it into a book and teach it to everyone. Wow! As soon as Blackbeard said this, there was an uproar, followed by a round of flattery from everyone. Whitebeard couldn't help but smile with relief. He was leaning alone on the huge sofa in the back and watching a group of family members laughing, with satisfaction in his eyes. After Blackbeard gave the guarantee, he came to Whitebeard and said seriously, Dad, after my research on Marine 6 styles last night, I found that I seem to have some talent for practicing Marine 6 styles. So I want to find a quiet island suitable for cultivation to practice alone. I will teach you guys how to do it after first master Marine 6 styles. By then, the overall strength of our Whitebeard pirates will be able to reach a higher level. Quote. You la. After Whitebeard laughed for a while, he agreed directly without thinking. Okay, we will prepare the materials you need for training. The mountain behind the next port where our Moby Dick is docked is suitable for your training. Let Ace take you there when the time comes. He knows that place. Blackbeard smiled. The first phase of the plan is completed. As expected, it's easy to enjoy the shade with your back against a big tree. After one day. New World, Whitebeard Sea Area, back mountain of Chuyan Ross Island. Teach, I will ask you to learn the 6 postures from now on, so you have to work hard. After Ace and several Whitebeard crew members put down their daily supplies, he raised his 2 fingers and gestured to Blackbeard with a wicked smile. We'll leave first. Blackbeard grinned and said. Brother Ace, you have to hurry up and practice. Don't be left far behind by me when the time comes. Don't be too arrogant, Teach, I'm your captain. Ace smiled proudly, then turned around and left with the members of the 2nd Division. Blackbeard looked at the lake and cabin in front of him and couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. This place is just right for his next practice. Almost as soon as Ace and the others left, Blackbeard started his own 6-style training plan. The other side of the island. As soon as Ace and the other members of the 2nd team arrived at the port, he waved to his teammates and said, Jill, I won't go back with you. If Dad asks, tell him that I am going to South Blues Baitalila Island. If you tell Dad this, he will understand. Quote, okay Captain Ace. Gil nodded at Ace and headed towards the dock. Ace glanced at the Moby Dick, then at the back mountain of Chuyan Loss Island, and then he rose into the air and landed directly on a spindle-shaped boat on the sea below. Hoo. As orange flames rose up around Ace, the chrysanthemum yellow shuttle-shaped boat not only was not burned by the flames, but instead sprayed flames from a circular hole in the stern, causing the boat to break through the sea and speed away. If Blackbeard were here at this time, he would recognize that this is the technologically advanced fire energy boat in Alabasta when Ace first appeared in his previous life. Just looking at the technological sense of this boat, we can see that the technological level of the Whitebeard pirates is not only not low, but is far superior to some major countries in the pirate world. Crash. Ace's boat was spraying flames from the stern and quickly moved away from Chuyan Loss Island. He pressed the top of his cowboy hat with one hand, turned his body slightly, and said with a grin. Teach, wait here, you guy. How dare you say that I rely too much on fruits? Snort. I'll catch up sooner or later. After I finish paying homage to my mother this time, I will come back and practice hard. Quote. Boom. After saying this, the orange flames around Ace surged, and the speed of the boat doubled again. In just a few breaths, there was only a small black dot left on the Chuyan Loss Island behind. At the same time, Chuyan Mountain behind Loss Islands. After sorting out the training resources, Blackbeard directly entered the training mode. I saw a black figure flashing and moving in the Rocky Mountain, leaving behind black afterimages. Shave. Whoosh whoosh. 10 minutes later. The black shadow stopped, revealing Blackbeard's handsome face that had been adjusted by return of life. His face was full of excitement at this time. The traveler's clock is really awesome. Now that you are familiar with shaving, let's try this again. With a thought in his mind, Blackbeard raised his right hand, raised an index finger, and poked the rock wall in front of him according to the operation method of the 6-style finger pistol. Finger pistol. Puff puff. A few seconds later, Blackbeard suddenly smiled with satisfaction as he looked at the rock wall that had been poked into a honeycomb shape by his fingers. Although he was still a little nervous before, after personally testing it, he was very sure that he was completely able to perform the 6 exercises through the information in his mind. Next, just follow the steps. Blackbeard has already made plans for the 2nd phase. He decided to spend 2 months practicing the 6 moves on the Chuyan Loss Island, and let the traveler's clock accumulate scales in preparation for strengthening and expanding Dark Fruit's abilities in the future. In the first month, complete the 6-style and 6 movement expansion exercises. The next month was to strengthen his physical training. For this purpose, he also specially took a pair of seastone handcuffs from the Whitebeard pirates. The purpose is to adapt yourself and conduct higher intensity training under the influence of seastone handcuffs. Thinking about this in his mind, Blackbeard once again immersed himself in the practice of the 6 styles. Moonwalk, Tempest Kick, Iron Body, 6 King's Spear. ... Time flies like an arrow, the days and months fly by, and the days when you can't pretend to be cool fly by. 2 months later, Blackbeard was sitting by the lake at the back of Chuyan Loss Island. At this time, his hands were locked by seastone handcuffs, his eyes were closed, and his consciousness entered the space of Traveler's Clock. After these 2 months of accumulation, the seconds on the traveler's clock had stopped ticking since last night. This also means that the accumulation of traveler's clock on this island has reached its upper limit. But that was enough for Blackbeard, because in the past 2 months, he not only fully mastered the 6 styles and 6 king spears, but also conducted training and expansion of the moves. Coupled with his alien body, he quickly adapted to the strength of seastone. Not to mention that wearing seastone handcuffs can make you feel as light as a swallow, but at least the situation like Wong Luffy who becomes weak at the touch will no longer appear. At the same time, a month ago, he also used the accumulated completion mark of Traveler's Clock to expand and strengthen the move of Dark Fruit, Dark Water, allowing the move of Dark Water to expand and evolve into Universal Pull. The characteristic of this move is to strengthen Dark Fruit's black hole gravitational properties, including but not limited to absorbing demon fruit power, and instead use powerful gravity to attract everything to itself. At this time, Blackbeard has already unlocked the Seastone handcuffs. While feeling the lightness of his body, he is preparing to use the accumulated points of the Traveler's Clock to once again expand Dark Fruit's gravity ability. Buzz. As a burst of silvery white light bloomed slightly on Blackbeard's body, the cumulative mark on the Traveler's Clock that reached 3 gradually disappeared. At the same time, with Blackbeard's thoughts, Dark Fruit's black hole gravitational moves have once again been expanded and evolved. Wow! The next second, a huge black hole with a diameter of 4 to 5 meters slowly emerged behind Blackbeard, who was sitting on the grass by the lake, and black air currents were exuding from the edge. At first glance, it looks like a small black sun, giving people a deep and mysterious feeling. Buzz. Immediately afterwards, Blackbeard's sitting cross-legged figure slowly left the grass and gradually rose into the sky. It wasn't until he reached a height of 100 meters that his body stopped. At this time, Blackbeard opened his eyes and looked down at the rocky Lost Island below. The corners of his mouth gradually rose, and his laughter gradually expanded until it resounded throughout the entire rocky mountainous area. Ha ha ha, even the gravitational property of a black hole is gravity. It worked. Am I a genius? Let's call this move inducing and controlling all things. Quote. Blackbeard flew excitedly in the sky for a while before returning to the cabin. He picked up the phone bug that was eating leaves on the table and the life card in the box. He revealed his mouth full of white that had been repaired by drinking milk. Fang. It's time to leave. Booloo booloo. After hearing the phone call being answered, Blackbeard said directly. Dad, I have sorted out the full set of training methods for the 6 forms. You can ask Marco to come over. Even Whitebeard was shocked when he heard that Teach had learned Marine 6 styles in such a short time, and he said in disbelief. Nani, Teach, you are not kidding, are you? You have learned the 6 postures. You are not trying to make fun of Daddy, are you? Thief ha 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 ha, Dad, wouldn't you know if you asked Marco to come? Blackbeard grinned. I don't know if it's because of the dark fruit, but I learn things very quickly now. As long as I've seen it before and referenced it, I can learn it. Eula la la la. Whitebeard burst out laughing and said. Okay, I'll ask Marco and the others to pick you up immediately. Hearing this, Blackbeard pondered for 2 seconds and then said. No need, Dad, I have some ideas during my training this time. I want to go overseas for a while to develop my fruit abilities. Okay, then I'll let Marco go find you alone. Whitebeard nodded in agreement. Noon the next day, Blackbeard had just finished eating a grilled fish when he saw a giant green-orange bird land in front of him from the sky. Wow! Immediately afterwards, the green fire suddenly turned into Marco's appearance. He waved his hand at Blackbeard and said with a smile. Hey, Teach, I heard what Dad said. You have mastered the 6 styles. Really or not? Upon hearing this, Blackbeard just grinned, revealing his big white fang filled with milk, and then without hesitation raised his 2-meter-long leg and kicked Marco who was more than 10 meters away. Tempest Kick Moon Blade. Tiskla. The next moment, a light blue moon blade with a diameter of more than 3 meters plowed a ravine into the ground and slashed towards Marco. Nani, it's really true. Marco was shocked and exclaimed. Of course, he was not scared by the slash, but was shocked that Blackbeard really mastered Marine 6 styles. Hula. Marco's raised right hand instantly turned into a giant cyan claw, and then a circle of armament hockey was wrapped around the giant claw. He directly caught the tempest kick that flew in front of him. Boom. Tiskla. The 3-meter-long moon blade slash was caught by Marco in his giant blue claws and squeezed hard, turning it into countless light points and dissipating. He himself was also struck backwards by the force of the slash. A few meters. At the same time, a hole had been cut out of the cyan flame in the palm, revealing the dark palm wrapped in armed color. Ha 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 ha. Blackbeard burst out laughing and said, "Marco, how are you? Have my physical skills improved in the past 2 months? Teach, you guy." Marco looked at Blackbeard with a shocked face and sighed. "What a monster," Blackbeard said. "Soon, Marco, you will also be able to master it. I have put all the information about Marine 6 styles in the box on the table in the cabin. You can take it back." When Marco heard Blackbeard's words, he also knew that he was leaving. He had heard his father say it before he came. After thinking about it, he said, "Dad said that since you are going to sea, he can't just let you go to sea empty-handed. There is a treasure of 10 million belly under the bed in the cabin. At that time, you can also go to the capital of 7 waters and ask for a medium-sized sailboat from the mayor named Ace Baku, or you can customize it. His master, Mr. Tom, owes his father a favor. He will understand after you tell him about it. Dad also said that there are many forces of the Whitebeard pirates watching us on the sea, so you should be careful when going out to sea alone. Well, this is the permanent pointer to the 7 waters capital. Oh, by the way, Dad said that you can form a new division based on your strength. As for the division number, you can choose it yourself as long as there is no conflict. When you come back, Dad will rematch the team members for you. Of course, if you want to find team members yourself after going to sea, that's fine. It's all up to you." Quote, Blackbeard didn't expect Marco to say such words. At the same time, he felt warm and mixed feelings about Whitebeard's instructions and preparations. "Blackbeard, you really deserve to die." "Oh, Blackbeard is actually me." "That's okay. It has to be said that Whitebeard is really sincere about his family, and it is not in vain that he handed over his detailed Marine 6 styles training experience." Thinking of this, Blackbeard smiled. "I understand, Marco, just let Dad rest assured. When I return to our Whitebeard pirates again, I will definitely raise our overall strength to another level. You have to practice hard too, don't let me surpass you." "Thief, ha 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 ha, if you want to surpass me, just dream." Marco laughed and cursed, picked up the box containing Marine 6 styles cultivation experience, spread his wings and soared, and at the same time his voice came down from the sky. "Teach, you guy, be careful." Blackbeard was startled for a moment, then smiled and waved to the sky. Then, he walked into the cabin and lifted up the wooden bed, only to find that there was a treasure box underneath. When the treasure chest was opened, it contained about 5 million belly, as well as 5 million bellies worth of gold and a large cloth bag. Seeing these things, Blackbeard couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. Obviously, these were things Whitebeard had prepared for him a long time ago. "Blackbeard, you are really..." With a grunt, he quickly packed the Baileys and gold in the cloth bag and walked out of the cabin. After looking at the beautiful lake in front of him and the surrounding rocky mountains that had been almost flattened by his own cultivation, a smile appeared on his lips. "See, here I come. Guide all things." Buzz. The next second, a circular black hole exuding black gas with a diameter of 3 to 4 meters slowly condensed behind Blackbeard. Immediately, his figure rose directly from the ground. He glanced at the permanent pointer on his wrist and pointed directly towards flying away in the direction of the capital of 7 waters. After feeling his flying speed, Blackbeard calculated that if nothing unexpected happened, it would probably take him a few days to fly to the capital of 7 waters. However, if nothing else happens, there will be an accident. Chapter 11. I have to say that the benefits of having the ability to fly in the world of pirates are simply not that great. If his flying ability hadn't allowed him to avoid several major storms in advance in the air, if he had sailed by ship, it would have been a problem whether he could have arrived in a month or 2. After flying over the red line, Blackbeard flew for more than 2 days and passed through the Devil's Triangle without seeing Brook. After escaping another storm, it was night time. "As long as we pass tonight, we will be able to fly to the capital of 7 waters at noon tomorrow." Originally, Blackbeard was going to find a desert island to simply replenish some food, but soon he discovered that a scarlet color appeared in the sky in the distance. Seeing this, He turned around and flew towards the sky without hesitation. The reason why he went to sea was firstly so that the traveler's clock could accumulate ticks faster so that he could accelerate the development of dark fruit. Secondly, he wanted to experience the scenery and beauty of the pirate world in person, and he also had a desire to take risks and swim in the sea. Heart. So, how could he not be curious after seeing a vision? After flying towards the scarlet sky for a while, Blackbeard saw a small dark dot in the distance through the moonlight in the sky. Seeing this scene, he immediately understood that there should be an island ahead. Maybe this vision happened on that island, and it happened to be a place where I could rest for a night. A few minutes later, when Blackbeard landed on the beach of the island, he was surprised to find that there were dozens of ships parked at the island's port. Ships come in all sizes. What surprised him the most was that there were actually marine warships here, and there were as many as 10 of them. One of the marine's medium-sized warships and 9 small warships. According to his understanding of the marine configuration in this world, this is at least the configuration of a Commodore or above, and it is not an ordinary Commodore. Seeing this, he raised his eyebrows. What really made him hesitate was that the island seemed to be surrounded by a scarlet light curtain, making it difficult for him to see clearly what was going on inside. Especially there is no one at the port. This is very strange. Is it some kind of devil fruit ability? Blackbeard searched his past life memories and found that he had never seen such an ability, nor had he seen anything like this happen in the plot. However, he was very confident in his own strength but did not hold back. But he won't get into it so easily. First, he raised his right hand wrapped in the armor color to test it. After finding no obstruction, he removed armament hockey, but still felt nothing. After that, he used dark fruit to test the scarlet light curtain, and still entered it easily. Seeing this, Blackbeard directly covered his body with armament hockey, and then stepped in. When entering the light curtain, except for the scarlet sky, the port seemed normal. Well, except for no one. After some observation, Blackbeard directly emitted his observation hockey. Soon he raised his eyebrows and made a discovery. Interesting, didn't you expect that you accidentally stumbled onto this island? Wait, are these people marine? Tisk, it seems that a big secret has been discovered. As the information spread, Blackbeard found that he saw many acquaintances from the plot in his past life memories. It's just that they are now trapped in a rather strange situation. Each of these people's eyes glowed red, and those who didn't know it thought they were using observation hockey. But Blackbeard's observation revealed that these people all had anger, fear, and struggle in their emotions, and they seemed to be controlled by something. When his vision completely covered the center of the island, he finally discovered the source of the situation. I saw an altar dozens of meters high in the center of the island. At this time, it can be said that almost everyone on the island was already under the altar. Most of them are guarded by nearly 1,000 marine soldiers with red eyes. There are also some ordinary people who have been hacked to death by guns or long knives. Above the altar, a marine rear admiral, about 2 meters tall and wearing a marine cloak of justice, was holding a nearly 2-meter-long sword high and looking up to the sky with a smile. Interesting. Seeing this, Blackbeard jumped up without hesitation and flew quickly towards the center of the island. Ha 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 ha. As Blackbeard approached, the marine rear admiral's wild laughter gradually became clearer. You guys who still try to resist this god, when I completely control the 7-star sword, I will use you to sacrifice the sword. Be afraid, struggle, be angry. This is the power of gods. Ha ha ha. Just as the marine rear admiral was laughing wildly, Blackbeard had already flown above the square in the center of the island. He looked at the red moon in the sky, and the red energy falling from the top of the sky fell into the long sword held high by the marine rear admiral. And the center of the long sword is constantly emitting a strange green light. After carefully observing the long sword for a while, Blackbeard was finally able to confirm that it was the 7-star sword from the previous version of One Piece, the cursed sword. Although the 7-star sword in his previous life had good performance, judging from Blackbeard's current strength, it was obviously too weak. However, the 7-star sword in front of me seems to be different from it. Even through seeing and hearing, Blackbeard can feel the strangeness and power of this sword, and there is a faint aura of a great swordsman in it. How can this be? Is that marine rear admiral a great swordsman? That's not right, it's obvious that this Marine Rear Admiral is controlled by the 7-star sword. It seems to be a problem with this 7-star sword. Observing this, Blackbeard remembered that the 7-star sword in the previous life movie version did not seem to be unsealed. It was even later sealed away by the girl named Maya using a jade. At this time, the 7-star sword seems to be in a completely unsealed state, and is still absorbing the energy in this scarlet light curtain. Blackbeard's sight color can be clearly seen. This red light curtain began to gradually become thinner from the moment he landed on the island. At this time, there were already signs of disappearing, because the blood moon in the sky began to gradually fade. Seeing this, Blackbeard stood directly in the air with his arms folded. He was not in a hurry. He wanted to see what level this 7-star sword could reach in its complete state. It just so happened that he lacked a weapon. This 7-star sword is so handsome, just right. Boom. At this moment, the blood-colored light curtain in the sky shattered like glass, turning into countless stars and dots of red light that dissipated in the sky, and the silver moonlight sprinkled into the earth again. Almost at the same time, in the square below, a tired old woman who looked like a priest let out a painful cry. It's over. The evil 7-star demon sword has been completely unsealed, and the world is going to be destroyed. Seemingly affected by the old woman's shrill wail, the surrounding people who were tied up by the Marine soldiers began to curse. I just wanted to come to this island to escape the storm. You trash Marines, let go of your labor now. Please, don't kill me. Way ha 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 ha, Oka, it looks like we are going to die. We are really unwilling to meet this kind of monster just after we went out to sea. We were just hiding from the storm, but to encounter such a thing, we are really unlucky. Since fate brought us here, let's follow our fate. Ikaram, I can't die yet. Woo woo woo. Don't worry, Princess Vivi, I will definitely take you out. Quietly. All the sounds in the square below fell into Blackbeard's ears, which made his expression look a little weird. Bath, Van Oka, Ikaram, and even Princess Vivi are also in this place. I didn't expect that Aska Island would be filled with so many familiar people. The most ridiculous thing is that there are 2 people here who were members of the Blackbeard pirates in the previous life. Among them are the captain of the number 1 ship, Giza's Bass, who ate the lily fruit in his previous life, and the captain of the number 3 ship, Van Oka, who ate the teleportation fruit. After feeling their aura through sight and smell, Blackbeard couldn't help but nodded with satisfaction. His strength was pretty good. In addition, they already have an understanding of the plot of the previous life. For the 2 of them to become the leaders of the Blackbeard pirates in the previous life, it also proves that they have good potential. Now that we have met them, we can just take them under our wing. As for Princess Vivi, she doesn't want Alabasta to be destroyed by crocodile, right? Although meeting a few of their acquaintances was a change in plans, it was an unexpected surprise. While I was thinking about revising my follow-up plan, I suddenly heard the crazy laughter coming from the Marine Rear Admiral on the altar. Ha, that's right, that's right, that's it. Be afraid, howl, be angry, struggle. The more scared you are, the more excited I am. Look, this is invincible power. Quote, swish. As he swung the 7-star sword towards the forest behind the altar, a 100-meter-long green sword light swept out in an instant. Boom boom boom. Just as he became familiar with it, the forest behind him was directly cut into a ravine of hundreds of meters by this sword energy. The surrounding forest trees turned into countless pieces of earth, stone and wood. The power of a sword is so terrifying. Seeing this, Blackbeard couldn't help but secretly lamented that this complete 7-star sword was indeed much better than the 7-star sword in the movie version that he remembered. The Marine Rear Admiral of the swordsman level alone is almost catching up with the great swordsman by borrowing its power. When he looked at the figure on the high altar, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. It was time to take action. I saw that the Marine Rear Admiral standing on the altar had been completely controlled by the strange power of the 7-star sword, and his whole body seemed to be covered with a red coat, looking strange and inexplicable. After everyone in the square below saw this scene, everyone turned pale and looked completely desperate. There was no way, the power of this sword was so terrifying, they had no idea how to survive from this monster. But at this moment, an extremely arrogant laughter sounded above their heads. Is this invincible? He is indeed the frog in the well of paradise. But whatever, your sword is really powerful. Lousy wants it. Ha 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 ha. Aha. Almost at the same time, everyone in the entire square subconsciously raised their heads, and then they saw the majestic figure standing in the sky with arms wrapped around each other. In this silent night, when everyone on Aska Island was in despair, it seemed that they finally saw a glimmer of light. Although the stalwart man in front of them was very strange to them, the figure that he could stand in the air was not something that ordinary people could do. Especially the huge black disc with rising black energy behind the opponent is even more weird and mysterious. There is no doubt that Blackbeard's arrogant words immediately attracted the attention of the Marine Rear Admiral on the altar, and then he quickly saw Blackbeard standing in the sky and sneered. He's just a demon fruit power with the ability to fly, but he dares to be rampant in front of this god. Go to hell, Demon Slayer. Ha 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 ha. Aha. As he spoke, the Marine Rear Admiral struck Blackbeard in the sky with his sword without hesitation. Tiskla. The next moment, another 100-meter-long dark green slash struck Blackbeard in the sky. Blackbeard, who had expected it, had already raised his right hand wrapped in black energy in advance, and then sprayed out a black energy of tens of meters from the palm of his right hand. The black energy was still expanding rapidly and stopped in front of Blackbeard. PFF'd. The next second, the 100-meter sword energy instantly disappeared into the darkness. What? This is impossible. The Marine Rear Admiral was also startled by Blackbeard's ability, but he was quickly replaced by madness. He held the sevenstar sword in both hands and slashed at Blackbeard one after another. Swish swish. Immediately, dozens of dark green flying slashes surged towards Blackbeard. But this time, Blackbeard didn't even use Darkfruit's ability. He just used his sense of sight to easily dodge the dozens of flying slashes. Then he raised the corners of his mouth slightly and said slowly, "The power is pretty good, but it's a pity that it's not your own power. With this level of power, it's impossible to touch me at all. Whatever abilities you have, use them all. Please please me to your heart's content, you pathetic weakling." As soon as Blackbeard said this, the entire square fell into a half-dead silence, and even the crazy Marine Rear Admiral couldn't help but fall into a brief sluggish state. All the people who were tied up in the square below opened their mouths wide, their eyes almost bulged out, and they all showed Enel's shocked faces. Is this too crazy and too pretentious? It must be said that Blackbeard's words directly gave everyone present a trembling feeling. There is no way, the contrast is indeed too great. General Marine, who they thought had the power of a god, couldn't even touch the clothes of this mysterious man who suddenly appeared, Kakuzu. This sense of contrast, coupled with Blackbeard's words, really left an indelible feeling of invincibility deep in the souls of everyone present. Is he the god? This thought came to everyone's mind at the same time. Impossible, absolutely impossible. I have the power of a god. Die. Quote. The Marine Rear Admiral roared crazily when he saw this, and a red light bloomed all over his body, and a terrible energy suddenly gathered on the sevenstar sword in his hand. And the Marine Rear Admiral's body of more than 2 meters shrank in a circle at a speed visible to the naked eye. The sevenstar in his hand became even more magical and sharp. Seeing this scene, Blackbeard couldn't help but become more interested in the sevenstar sword. Can it actually absorb human life force as the source of power? It looks somewhat similar to the Yama that Zoro had after becoming a sword holder in the previous life plot. That Yama only absorbed Haki after all, but this sevenstar sword absorbed not only Haki, but even the life force was extracted. I have to say, Blackbeard wants this sevenstar sword even more. Seeing this, Blackbeard opened his arms and said wildly, "A guy who can't even control a mere sword dares to call himself a god. Come on, use your strongest sword to show me how powerful your so-called god is." Lousy's favorite thing to do is to pull the gods off the altar. Thief, ha 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 ha. Buzz. As he spoke, black energy surged around Blackbeard, and at the same time, a purple-black stream of air surged out from his body instantly. His body of more than 3 meters tall is like being wrapped in a flowing purple-black armor. There are countless black energies rising around the armor, giving people a full sense of oppression. Especially when the people below look up at the sky. Looking at Blackbeard at this moment, he looks like an ancient god and demon standing in the sky. Haki is fierce. You're just a human being, you're looking for death. The Marine Rear Admiral roared angrily, and the seven-star sword in his hand was mixed with red and green light, shining extremely brightly in the dark night. Just the next moment, a red-green sword energy that was hundreds of meters long came directly towards Blackbeard in the direction where the Marine Rear Admiral slashed. Feeling this terrifying sword intent and energy, Blackbeard couldn't help but lick his lips. This sword made him feel like he was facing a great swordsman directly. Even the captain of the 5th Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, Foil Beasta, didn't give him this feeling. What power is hidden in this seven-star sword? With these thoughts in his mind, it did not prevent Blackbeard from counter-attacking this move. As he laughed, he bent his arms forward and made fists with his hands, almost touching each other, but his fists were aimed at the altar direction. As the two-color hockey in his body merges into his fists, he activates the return of life and at the same time aims the attack direction of the 6 King Spear downwards. At the same time as the red and green sword light rose into the sky, Blackbeard also shouted, "Emission 6 King Spear." Buzz. The next moment, a purple-black shock wave erupted from Blackbeard's fists, turning into a huge light beam several meters in diameter and rushing towards the red-green sword energy that was slashing. Bang! The two attacks collided in the sky. Boom! After a few seconds, two attacks suddenly exploded in the sky. Wow! The next moment, the originally dark clouds in the night sky were shaken away by this terrifying energy fluctuation, and the bright moon was completely revealed in front of everyone in the square below. After seeing the terrifying and dazzling explosion in the night sky, everyone squinted their eyes almost subconsciously, eager to see the result of the battle. After dozens of seconds, the aftermath subsided. When everyone saw that the tall body like the ancient demon god was still standing in the sky, everyone's eyes suddenly showed a look of great surprise. "The sword swings well, but it's useless to me. No, no, this is impossible." The Marine Rear Admiral on the altar couldn't believe what he saw. He raised the seven-star sword and pointed it at Blackbeard and growled, "What kind of monster are you? Thief, ha 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 ha." Blackbeard burst out laughing when he heard this and grinned at him. "Remember it, lousy as the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates 0 Division, Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach. A man destined to stir the tide of the times." Quote, "Wow." As soon as Blackbeard said this, there was another burst of noise in the square below. Although they have never heard of Blackbeard's reputation, how could they not have heard of the famous name of the pirate emperor, Whitebeard, Edward Newgate? But what shocked them even more was, could a captain of the Whitebeard Pirates possess such terrifying strength? What? The Marine Rear Admiral had obviously heard of the Whitebeard Pirates, but he was not an ignorant person. He immediately roared, "Who the hell are you? I've never heard of a person like you in the Whitebeard Pirates, or even the 0 Division. The hidden rat. If you don't want to say it, then go to hell." Quote. As he spoke, the Marine Rear Admiral wanted to strike at Blackbeard with his sword. Seeing this, Blackbeard chuckled and didn't bother to play with him. Razor. Swish swish. But in the next moment, Blackbeard, who was still several hundred meters away from the altar, turned into a black shadow, making a burst of energy in the air, and in the blink of an eye he was in front of the Marine Rear Admiral. At the same time, the Marine Rear Admiral happened to slash down with his sword again. However, the next second, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Clang! At the same time as a crisp sound of gold and iron mingled, everyone saw that the terrifyingly powerful seven-star sword was blocked by Blackbeard with just one finger. Hiss! Everyone who saw this scene felt their scalps go numb, and they began to gasp crazily. Even the Marine Rear Admiral was a little dumbfounded at this time. Although he knew that this guy named Blackbeard was strong, he never thought he could be this strong. Block the seven-star sword with one finger. Do not make jokes. This is a weapon used by gods. How can this be? Boom! But before he could react, he was kicked away by Blackbeard. Whoosh! Boom! Immediately, the Marine Rear Admiral turned into a black shadow and was kicked directly from the altar to the center of the square, making a huge crater on the ground, and he could not get up again. The seven-star sword in his hand also fell into Blackbeard's hands at this time. Thief, ha 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 ha. The moment he took possession of the seven-star sword, Blackbeard immediately learned most of the information about the seven-star sword. He immediately looked up to the sky and laughed while holding the nearly 2-meter-long seven-star sword. At the same time, a strange red light rose into the sky, mixed with the black mist of dark fruit, making Blackbeard even more magical and weird. The old priest from Aska Island below saw this scene and immediately wailed in horror. It's over. It's completely over. This gentleman is also controlled by the seven-star sword. When everyone heard this, they were horrified. As the Marine Rear Admiral was kicked away by Blackbeard, the power that originally controlled 1,000 Marines suddenly disappeared. After regaining consciousness, many conscientious Marines looked at the civilians they killed in the square and the businessmen who came to escape the storm, holding their heads and wailing. "Ah, God, what have I done? I killed someone. I killed someone. I actually attacked civilians. Stop howling. The World Dragon Rear Admiral will kill us." Quote. Wait, that's the World Dragon Rear Admiral. Although some of these Marines felt guilty for killing ordinary people, most of them seemed more indifferent. Compared to the civilians they killed, they were more concerned about whether they would be killed by the World Dragon Rear Admiral. But when they found the World Dragon Rear Admiral lying covered in blood in the big pit in the center of the square, everyone was shocked. Aha! But before they could react, a tall figure appeared in front of the big pit in the center of the square in the blink of an eye. After everyone saw this figure clearly and the seven-star sword tightly held in his hand, everyone felt cold all over. Many people are chanting words such as, "It's over," and, "It's completely over." Such powerful people have been controlled by the seven-star sword, and they have completely given up. Although those Marines didn't understand why their Rear Admiral was beaten like this, the seven-star sword fell into the hands of this stranger again. But looking at the situation in front of me, I somewhat understood the general outline. Especially some of the Marines who were strong-willed in the past also knew something about what happened before. So when he saw Blackbeard walking to the edge of the pit and raising the seven-star sword to strike at his commander, a Marine soldier finally couldn't help it and shouted tremblingly. "Hey, who are you? What do you want to do? Put down the weapon in your hand. Woo-woo." Just when the young Marine was about to say something, his mouth was suddenly covered by a tall Marine nearly 3 meters tall. The latter immediately gritted his teeth and whispered, "Shut up, Duma. That guy is also controlled by the seven-star sword. Are you looking for death? Thief, ha 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 ha." Feeling the emotions of everyone and seeing the expressions of these Marines, Blackbeard burst into laughter. Immediately, hockey surged around him, and the purple-black hockey instantly dissipated the scarlet energy surrounding him. Then he instantly used armament hockey to turn the seven-star sword into a surging black sword with high-grade armed colors. He grinned and said, "You want to control labor and capital with just a broken sword? Do not make jokes. Lousy is Blackbeard." Quote, "Aha." After the words fell, a sword struck out. Tiskla. Boom boom boom. The next moment, a 1,000-meter-long purple ink sword light that was several times more terrifying than the sword energy struck by the World Dragon before instantly flooded the World Dragon in the pit, and the sword light continued unabated, directly plowing out a new road gully in the forest within a few kilometers ahead. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened in horror. They didn't expect that this seven-star sword could launch even more terrifying attacks than before. For a moment, they looked at Blackbeard with a hint of fear. They were a little confused as to whether this powerful man was controlled by the seven-star sword. As the first person to kill someone, Blackbeard felt a little uncomfortable in his heart, but since the other party wanted to kill him, he had to be prepared to be killed by him. If you don't have this awareness, then don't be a pirate. What's more, I have to make the celestial dragons of this world feel pain. He also wanted these guys to feel what it was like to be hunted, to be used as prey and as chips in competitions. Moreover, this Marine Rear Admiral is not a good bird either. Thinking of this, Blackbeard suddenly felt enlightened. At the same time, his mind also accepted more information about this seven-star sword. The owner of this sword is a great swordsman from hundreds of years ago or more. And he is an esper who ate the Paramecia blessing fruit. Name: Demon Sword, Sephiroth. The reason why there is such a phenomenon on this island is basically caused by the awakening blessing fruit before Sephiroth died. When he added his soul, hockey, swordsmanship, and fruit abilities into the seven-star sword, energy overflowed. This led to the strange phenomenon that happened on Aska Island. Over time, strange legends and stories emerged. In addition, Only those who can truly suppress and conquer this 7-star sword can obtain this information and control this 7-star sword, which makes the story even more magical. When receiving this information, Blackbeard smiled with satisfaction. The harvest this time is undoubtedly huge. The 7-star sword is also a treasure that can be mined deeply. Just as he was thinking about this, the 1,000 marine soldiers suddenly made a commotion. Oops, World Dragon Rear Admiral is dead. What? Wahahaha, this scumbag is finally dead. We are free. Brothers, what are you afraid of? This demon is dead. We don't have to sacrifice our lives for this guy anymore. Isn't this worth being happy about? Ha ha ha, yes, we should be happy. Seeing Marine's excitement, Blackbeard grinned and said, "Let me tell you, are you a little too happy too early?" Gah! The voices of the 1,000 Marines who were originally excited suddenly stopped after hearing Blackbeard's words. Many Marines looked at Blackbeard in fear. Only then did they remember that they were indeed happy too early. There was a monster here. I know, you are a member of the Whitebeard Pirates. So what, we Marine are not afraid. It was the short Captain Marine named Duma who spoke out before. The big Marine behind him saw this and wanted to come up and cover his mouth again, but this time he threw him away and shouted, "Bismarck, don't stop me, we are righteous Marines. I'm not afraid of these evil pirates." After hearing what Duma said, Blackbeard looked at them with interest, and at the same time raised his hand and pointed at the civilian corpses in the square. "Pirates are evil, Marine is justice. Do you want to see who caused the situation before you? If you have such a strong sense of justice, why don't you kill the celestial dragons, the leader of the slave traders who destroyed a country in 3 years and hunted people as a competitive game? What kind of justice and evil are we talking about here with labor and management? Ridiculous. Since you have the energy to talk tough, why not first untie the civilians and businessmen who are bound by you? Don't worry, labor and management have no interest in you hypocritical guys." Thief ha 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 ha. Duma, who was originally righteous, was completely confused after hearing Blackbeard's words. Not only him, but also the Marines and the surrounding civilians who were tied to trees or on the ground were full of shock and disbelief. Are the celestial dragons, known as the descendants of gods, such evil beings? Is this true? At this moment, everyone was either shocked, in disbelief, or deep in thought. Night. The first half of the Grand Line, in the center of the village of Aska Island. The originally hunched old priestess was holding a wine glass, standing on a high stone platform, looking at the people sitting around the bonfire and shouting, "Thanks to Mr. Blackbeard for escaping from death today. Let's raise a glass together with the old man and thank Mr. Blackbeard for his life-saving grace. Respect, Blackbeard. Here's to Blackbeard." Everyone around the campfire laughed happily and raised their glasses when they heard this. Blackbeard, who was sitting aside, couldn't help laughing when he saw this scene, and also raised his glass and drank. On the contrary, when the Marines who had just arrived at the village entrance saw this scene, they couldn't help but look at each other, and then they each sighed and turned around to leave. The fun is other people's and has nothing to do with them. No, it should be said that they are not worthy. Only the 3 Marine lieutenants, Duma, Bismarck and Bukong Gu, looked at the people laughing with the pirates in the central square of the village and remained silent for a long time. It was really Blackbeard's previous words that shocked these Marines so much. If it is true as the pirate named Blackbeard said, the celestial dragons will not only destroy a country every 3 years, but also conduct a killing competition game. What scares them the most is Marine. It is their protective umbrella. Now think about the celestial dragons, who have ruled the world for 800 years, how many countries they have destroyed and how many people they have killed. Duma, Bismarck and Bukongu didn't dare to think too much, and they felt cold all over when they thought about it. Hell is empty, the devil is in the world. Bismarck, Bukongu, I will definitely figure out the whole story. Duma raised his hand and grasped the long sword at his waist tightly, and said solemnly on his young face, "I will never allow Marine's justice to be tarnished. Duma, we believe in you." Bismarck and Bukongu both trembled when they heard this, and then they roared in unison, "Let's go. Go back to base." Duma took one last look at the joyful Askar village, and then left with a group of Marines. In Aska village, at this time, the people who survived the incident began to toast Blackbeard and express their gratitude. After the villagers and businessmen who had gathered around Blackbeard to thank him retreated, Fanoka and Giza's Bajis, who had been sitting in the corner drinking silently, looked at each other and then stood up at the same time and walked towards Blackbeard. Seeing the arrival of the two men, Blackbeard couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Before they could say anything, the two of them bowed towards him and said, "Thank you, Master Teach, for your life-saving grace." After hearing this, Blackbeard took a sip of wine and smiled. "You two are not just here to thank me, right?" The two looked at each other after hearing this, and then Badgers grinned and said, "Way ha 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 ha, yes, you are indeed Master Teach. Oka and I want to become your subordinates. I wonder if Master Teach agrees with our following." Although Fan Oka didn't speak, his eyes behind his glasses also showed nervousness. Blackbeard raised his hand and pointed at the two of them and said, "You should know that I am the captain of 4 Emperor's Whitebeard's men. If you follow me, the battles you will encounter in the future will be far more dangerous than today. Are you prepared to die in battle?" When the two of them heard this, they were so excited that they shook their bodies and shouted, "Of course, Captain Teach." Blackbeard waved his hand and said, "Okay, let's have a night's rest and go to sea tomorrow." "Yes, Captain." Fanoka and Bajis were both very excited. They didn't expect that the other party actually agreed to follow them. Although they have never heard of such a big man before, they believe that such a powerful captain will one day become famous all over the world. Then the three of them chatted until the end of the banquet. Van Oka and Badgers also learned about the current situation in New World from Blackbeard, as well as their future adventure plans. Only then did they realize that they were the first 2 crew members that their captain took in after he went to sea, and their ship was still lying in the capital of 7 waters. This made Van Oka and Badgers even more excited, especially when they heard that their captain would teach them hockey and enhance their strength after they boarded the ship. This made them have the urge to die for him. On impulse, both of them got drunk, lay down on one side and began to fall asleep. Just as Blackbeard was about to lie down and rest, he suddenly raised his eyebrows and revealed a smile. "Now that you're here, come directly. After all, it's been a long wait. Do you have anything to say to me, Princess Vivi from Alabasta?" Quote. After Blackbeard said this, the 2 people who had been hiding behind the nearby stone pillars and observing secretly were suddenly shocked. Although they didn't understand how their identities were exposed, they also knew that facing such a strong man, there was no point in escaping. In addition, they had their own ideas, so after looking at each other, the 2 walked out of the darkness behind the stone pillar. The person coming was none other than Princess Vivi with long aqua hair. She is currently wearing a ponytail, wearing a light green coat and blue and white suspenders on her upper body, a pair of white tight shorts and white high-heeled short boots on her lower body. This outfit made her, who should have been childish, a bit more mature. Coupled with her slim and figure, she didn't look like a teenage girl at all. Behind her was her escort, Ikaram. Vivi looked at the tall and majestic man in the distance, sighed and said, "Mr. Teach, I think I've hidden myself very well. I don't seem to have exposed my identity when I came to this island. I'm curious, how do you know my identity? Could it be the power of devil fruit?" Quote. Ikarim from behind also looked at Blackbeard with a wary expression. Blackbeard grinned and said, "How can I tell you? As someone who is in the first half of the park, you probably don't know that in this world besides devil fruit, there is also a power called hockey. And I used observation hockey to cover nearly half of the island when I went to the island before, and then I heard the conversation between you and your guard Ikaram. It's that simple." Quote. What? Vivi and Ikaram were shocked and exclaimed when they heard this. They didn't expect that this man was not only powerful, but also had such power. They had no doubts about Blackbeard's words. After all, in their opinion, there was no need for this powerful man to lie to them. Call. After taking a deep breath, Vivi's eyes gradually became firm. She knelt on her knees, put her hands on her knees, bent her slender waist and said solemnly, "Mr. Teach, I want to ask you to save Alabasta, and for this, I am willing to pay any price." Thief ha 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 ha. Blackbeard couldn't help laughing when he heard this. Ikaram from behind frowned when he saw the other party laughing at Princess Vivi like this, and suddenly said in a deep voice, "Mr. Teach, why are you laughing? Don't you think it's funny that a princess from a superpower like Alabasta seeks help from a pirate like me to save her country?" Blackbeard smiled at Ikarim and Vivi, who had astonished faces. I'm a pirate, you too. Did you misunderstand something? You don't think that just because I casually saved these people on Aska Island, you think I'm some kind of messenger of justice. Quote. Ikaram was about to speak, but the serious Vivi raised her hand to stop her. The girl looked at Blackbeard seriously and said, Sir Teach, of course I know the rules of pirates. So I said, as long as Lord Teach can help me save Alabasta, I am willing to give anything. Quote. Blackbeard looked Vivi up and down and then smiled. Are you willing to give anything, including yourself? Hearing this, Ikaram was immediately furious. Several barrels immediately stretched out from his golden curly hair and pointed at Blackbeard and shouted. Presumptuous. You, Ikaram, stand down. Vivi scolded. Your Highness Vivi. Ikaram turned to look at Vivi. Under the latter's stern gaze, he immediately lowered his head and retreated to the back. I understand, Your Highness Vivi. As Ikaram fell silent, the only sounds left in the place were the sound of Blackbeard drinking, and the snoring of Van Oka and badgers. After a moment of silence, Vivi looked up at Blackbeard with determination and said solemnly. As long as Mr. Teach helps me save Alabasta, then it doesn't matter if I sacrifice my body. After she finished speaking, she actually stretched out her hand to high-five Blackbeard. Seeing this scene, Blackbeard couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. He just made a casual joke, but he didn't expect this girl to be so decisive. Seeing this, Blackbeard laughed and said, Interesting, interesting. The atmosphere has reached this point. Isn't it unreasonable for me not to agree? Quote. After saying this, he no longer hesitated, raised his palm as big as a cattail leaf fan and patted it lightly with his small white hand. Snapped. Seeing Blackbeard agree, Vivi finally let out a long sigh of relief. Making an appointment to set out together tomorrow, she and Ikaram headed towards the harbor where the ships were moored. After leaving the central square of the village, Ikaram could no longer bear it and said, Your Highness Vivi, how could you make such a ridiculous decision? If King Cobra knew. Ikaram. Vivi sighed and interrupted him again, then said in a deep voice. How do you think we can win against the powerful and monster-like crocodile in his Baroque studio? There is no way. Ikaram, we are too weak. If that sand crocodile hadn't wanted to take down Alabasta in a peaceful way, I'm afraid my father would have. So, don't say anything anymore. Compared to the whole of Alabasta, who am I? Quote. Plop. Hearing this, Ikaram immediately knelt down beside Vivi and said painfully. Your Highness Vivi, your subordinate is incompetent. Ikaram, how can I blame you? Vivi was startled and immediately lifted Ikaram up and sighed. In this world where the jungle prevails, we Alabasta will be beaten if we don't have enough strength to protect ourselves. Having said this, she paused and suddenly smiled and said. Besides, I didn't agree to Master Teach's conditions just because of his great strength. It's not like I did nothing in the Baroque studio all these years. Among them, I know a lot of information about the Whitebeard pirates. This pirate group is one of the 4 emperors of the New World. Their captain, Whitebeard Edward Newgate, is not only the strongest man in the world, but the country he protects is now very safe. Even the much discriminated the Fishmen Island is protected by his flag, and no pirate dares to make a mistake. The most important thing is that the sand crocodile returned to the Grand Line from the New World because he failed to challenge Whitebeard. It was the combination of these factors that made me choose to agree to Master Teach's conditions. Just sacrificing me alone can save the entire Alabasta. This is the best way, isn't it, Ikaram? Quote. After hearing what Vivi said, Ikaram was dumbfounded, but tears flowed out of his eyes involuntarily. In the square behind, Blackbeard raised the corner of his mouth. Did you grow up from this incident? Nefertari D. Vivi. Forget it, Alabasta will talk about it later. Let me study this 7-star sword carefully first. Quote. As he spoke, Blackbeard had put down the wine jar, placed the 7-star sword squarely on his knees, placed his hands on the hilt and body of the sword, closed his eyes and began to feel it. Soon, the strange energy from before immediately poured into his body. Blackbeard did not use hockey to isolate him this time, but felt the information brought by this strange energy. He himself possesses a powerful hockey. Although this demonic energy is powerful, it is still far from being able to influence him. Soon, the previous information flooded into his mind again. The figure of a man with long white hair holding a seven-star sword appeared in his mind. This is a great swordsman from hundreds of years ago. Soon, information about him gradually poured into Blackbeard's mind. Sephiroth, a great swordsman who crossed the sea hundreds of years ago. Because the swordsmanship he practiced was too evil, he was later called the Demon Sword Sephiroth. Later, he traveled to Wano Kuni and accepted a young man with outstanding swordsmanship as his apprentice. The boy's name is Shimotsuki Ryoma. After teaching Ryoma swordsmanship for 2.5 years, he left again to continue his journey. I mistakenly ate the Paramecia blessing fruit on an island on the way. I originally thought that becoming a landlubber was a very bad thing. However, Sephiroth did not expect that this devil fruit would raise his strength to another level again. Because of the ability of this blessing fruit, it can not only bless one's own abilities on a person or object, but can also superimpose abilities. This is undoubtedly a terrifying increase for Sephiroth, who is already a great swordsman. And now the vision of the seven-star sword and Asuka Island is the reason why Sephiroth blessed all Haki and Kendo, and even part of his own soul, into this blessing fruit before his death. It is precisely for this reason that only the strong can subdue the seven-star sword and not be controlled by its weird abilities. After learning this information, Blackbeard couldn't help but be amazed. What he didn't expect even more was that Shimotsuki Ryoma, Wano Kuni's patron saint, turned out to be Sephiroth's apprentice. I really discovered an interesting secret. Blackbeard looked at the seven-star sword in his hand and nodded with satisfaction. It seems that with the kendo experience of this weapon and the conqueror's haki inside, I should be able to master the kendo quickly. Of course, the most important thing is conqueror's haki. This is the real reward. Ha ha ha. March 1518. South Blue, Betalira Island. At this time, two people wearing white suits and masks were standing on the trunk of a big tree, looking at the shirtless young man wearing a cowboy hat on the hillside in the distance. A conversation occurred as follows. Sue, why did that guy appear in this place? If I remember correctly, that hillside is the tomb of Postcard D. Rouge, right? Ah, you remember correctly, this is the last place I go back to. Wait a minute, what's Fire Fist Ace's full name? This is no longer important, especially when this guy's age is exactly the same. Take it first and then talk about it. But, isn't that guy the captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates? I can't control that much anymore. No matter who he is, those who are involved in the blood of Pirate King Gul D. Roger must be eliminated. Okay, then I will contact Stussy and ask her to go to Wangguo to find Charlotte Linlin to borrow her daughter's ability. That's it. A few hours later, as huge explosions came from the depths of Betalila Island, the entire mountainous area turned into a sea of fire. And Whitebeard's 2nd Division captain, Fire Fist Ace, has disappeared since then. At the same time, Grand Line, port of Asuka Island. Master Teach, please come back again. Goodbye, Master Teach. Thank you, Master Teach, I want to give you a child. Blackbeard, who was standing on the boat, couldn't help but laugh and cry when he saw this scene. He somewhat understood how Luffy felt. Way ha 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 ha, Captain Teach, as a pirate who is thanked by others, what do you think? When Badgers, who was leaning against the side of the boat, saw this, he immediately turned back to look at Blackbeard, who was sitting on the bow of the boat and was drinking, and joked. What do I think? I sit and watch. Blackbeard rolled his eyes and shouted at him. Hurry up and lower the sails, get ready to set sail. Captain, if the 5 of us want to operate such a large jib, we can't go fast, especially if you, the captain, are lazy. Fan Oka said expressionlessly while pulling a cable. It seems that fate wants the captain to accept the villagers, thanks. Blackbeard rolled his eyes. Xiao Fan, put away your provoking skills. Lousy has become the captain and has to lower the sails. Isn't this captain a waste of time? Then the captain should take this time to accept the thanks from the villagers. Fan Oka said quietly. That's right. Badgers grinned. You two, stop farting over there, Lousy is a pirate. Blackbeard scolded them, then turned to look at Ikaram and Vivi, who were also grinning and watching the fun, and shouted. And you two, why are you standing over there watching the excitement? Why is your Baroque Studios broken ship so difficult to drive? No, the ship plan seems to be on the agenda. Quote, Vivi and Ikaram looked at each other and couldn't help but chuckle. This captain seems quite interesting. Wow. Then, with the efforts of several people, the big ship Baroque Studio was finally sailed out of the port. This time starting from Aska Island, Blackbeard specifically asked the village for 2 permanent pointers, one to the Drum Kingdom and one to Alabasta. There is no way, there is currently no navigator on their ship, so they naturally need some insurance. Of course, the ship's doctor is also an important member of their ship. In addition, Aska Island is very close to Drum Island, so Blackbeard decided to go to the Drum Kingdom, known as the Medical Power, to find a ship doctor first. After all, monsters like Roger would be killed by disease, and Blackbeard couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't encounter emergencies. It would be best if you can find Chopper. If you can't find one, you can find a good doctor first. As for the original plot, Blackbeard didn't care about the situation of Luffy and the ship's doctor when they went to sea later. In the original plot, many of Luffy's crew members are very good, and they are all crew members with great potential. If he could cut off his beard, Blackbeard would show no mercy. Just like he promised Vivi to help her solve the Alabasta matter. He not only wants to solve Alabasta's problem, but also wants to bring Robin into the team. As a hardcore Pirates fan, Robin is undoubtedly one of his favorite girls among pirates. Now that he has come to this world and has such an ability, he will not miss it. This can be regarded as a different kind of dream fulfillment, right? Thinking of these, Blackbeard raised the corners of his mouth and once again placed his hands on the sevenstar sword across his knees, and then began to comprehend the kendo experience and conqueror's haki in the sevenstar sword. It takes 3 days to get to Drum Island, and Blackbeard will not waste it. He will use these 3 days to understand conqueror's haki in the sevenstar sword. The only thing he regretted was that Askar Island only provided half of the scale for the traveler's clock. It was just that the time scale bar didn't move for a second during the night, so he headed to the next island so quickly. Fanoka, Badgers, Ikaram and Vivi, who were all following the ship for the first time, were all shocked when they saw Blackbeard's actions. They didn't expect that their own captain was so strong and would practice so hard. Blackbeard's behavior really shocked them. However, Blackbeard did not just focus on his own cultivation. After a few hours of comprehending the conqueror's haki in the sevenstar sword, he opened his eyes. Kakaka. After getting up and moving his body, and using life return to dredge the body's blood, all the bones in his body suddenly emitted a leaden explosion like a musket, which startled a few people who were doing nothing on the side. Hey, Mr. Teach, have you finished practicing? Vivi, who was leaning aside to read a book, saw this and immediately asked curiously. Aha, Fanoka, Badgers and Ikaram looked over with curious eyes at the same time. Well, today's hockey practice is temporarily over. Blackbeard nodded at them. No, Captain, you are so strong, why are you still working so hard? Badgers frowned for a moment and then grinned. You will make us feel in danger, way ha 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 ha. Blackbeard glanced at them, then turned his gaze to Badgers and said in a deep voice. You must have a sense of crisis. How can pirates be such a comfortable and leisurely person? This era may become violent in the near future. Now that you are on my boat, you will naturally have to work hard. Quote. Plop. As soon as Blackbeard finished speaking, Vivi on the side suddenly stood up and said firmly. Master Teach, please make me stronger too. Seeing this, Blackbeard glanced at Fanoka and Badgers, who were still looking astonished, and smiled disdainfully. Look at you two, you are not as active as a little girl. After saying that, he turned to look at Vivi and said with a wicked smile. It's not impossible to let me teach you to become stronger, but it will be very painful. Vivi trembled when she saw Blackbeard's smile, but she still gritted her teeth and said. I'm not afraid of pain or anything like that. Fanoka and Badgies finally realized at this time that it would be too great for such a powerful captain to teach them how to practice. I'm not afraid either. Captain, whip me hard. Way ha 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 ha. Swim faster, swim faster. Haven't you eaten? You want to get stronger at your speed. You will be pushed into the water by the boat soon. It's so easy to become stronger. Feel the pain. Ha 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 ha. Ikaram, who was steering the wheel in the cab, looked at the 3 figures in the sea in front of the bow, and a stream of cold sweat broke out on his forehead involuntarily. He didn't expect that Mr. Teach would come up with such a deadly practice method. He actually let his own Princess Vivi and 2 other guys drag the big boat to swim in the sea. I don't know how this guy came up with this heaven-defying practice method. No one can stand it, right? That, Master Teach. Ikaram looked at Teach tentatively and said, should they be allowed to take a rest? They have been swimming for several hours. If this continues, I'm worried that Her Highness Vivi will not be able to bear it. Ikaram, Blackbeard shouted in a deep voice. Don't underestimate Vivi's determination to become stronger. Ikaram suddenly fell silent. I basically practiced like this in the next few days. Instead, Captain Blackbeard became the temporary chef. As a chef, he is not only responsible for cooking, but also responsible for hunting food. In this regard, Blackbeard used the simplest way to hunt a sea kings. Because one sea kings is enough for them to eat at Drum Island. The reason why they choose sea kings is because the meat of sea kings has special energy and can quickly help them restore their physical fitness. Perhaps it is precisely because of this that the strong men in this world can grow so tall, and their physical strength is exaggerated to the ultimate. Not to mention others, Blackbeard's own physical strength is now comparable to steel. Although this also has the bonus effect of the 6 movements, it is still very scary. In the next few days, Blackbeard and the others continued to move forward in this way. Vivi, Vanoka and Badgies practiced by pulling the boat forward with ropes tied around their waists, which caused their speed to slow down a bit. However, they still saw the Drum Kingdom not far ahead at noon on the 5th day. The practice of the 3 people also temporarily stopped. Because of the past few days of practice, as well as the 6-style practice method taught by Blackbeard himself, the mental outlook and strength of the 3 people have been significantly improved. From his perspective, Badgers should be the first to master the 2 moves Iron Body and Finger Pistol. Vanoka has a deeper understanding of shaving and paper arts. It can be said that all 3 of them have made rapid progress. It is indeed an existence that can stand alone in the future. Among the 3, the one who surprised Blackbeard the most was Vivi. This girl is not only better at shaving and paper arts than Vanoka, but her talent and life return is also very obvious. In this regard, Blackbeard also had to sigh that he was worthy of being a member of the D family, the protagonist of this world. But it was Vivi's stimulation that made the 2 big men, Vanoka and Badgies, work harder, and then the small group began to involuntarily begin. Fortunately, they have been eating a lot of Sea King's barbecue these days. Otherwise, Blackbeard is really worried that these guys will leave too many hidden wounds on their bodies. This is why Blackbeard wanted to find a ship's doctor immediately. Of course, they have made some progress in the past few days, and Blackbeard himself is not without progress. After these 5 days of sailing, the traveler's clock has finally accumulated the remaining half of the scale. This time, Blackbeard still used this scale to develop Dark Fruit, expanding and evolving the original Dark Acupoint move. The original ability of Dark Acupoint is to release darkness to the ground in a large area through the fruit ability characteristics of Dark Fruit. People or objects touched by the darkness will be sucked in, slowly sink, and compressed and crushed with unlimited power. Equivalent to a small black hole. In the previous story, when Blackbeard showed his ability to ace, he used this move to instantly turn a town into nothingness. After the expansion, Blackbeard renamed this move Darkness. Not only can it quickly suck people or objects shrouded in darkness into the darkness, but it can also control the darkness to form various shapes and use it as a shield to resist attacks. And suck the attacks into the black hole and use the pulling force of the black hole to directly crush them. At the same time, it can also make darkness form an armor to attach to itself or even wrap around the whole body. It has a strong concealment effect in the dark. The most important thing is that it can absorb all attacks into the darkness to avoid being easily attacked by others and causing double damage. If it weren't for the high-level external release level armament hockey, it would be impossible to harm his body. It can be said that with this ability, Blackbeard can now avoid most attacks even if he cannot become elemental. With this ability, Blackbeard's strength has been greatly improved. He was still very satisfied with this. Just as Blackbeard was considering the combat effectiveness of Dark Sky when their ship was about to approach Drum Island, someone on Drum Island had already spotted them in the watchtower. At the same time, in the mountain castle at the top of Segu Island. Bulu Bulu. Click. As the call was connected, an anxious voice immediately sounded from the other side. Lord Wapple, there is an unknown ship approaching our Drum Island. Hearing the voice coming from the phone, a fat man wearing a thick white fur animal skin, short purple hair, and an iron round box on his chin immediately yelled. Isn't there just a ship coming? What a fuss. Merchant ships charge them 40% commercial tax. The pirate ship lured them to the port and then directly destroyed them with cannon fire. Do you still want to ask the king about this kind of thing? Quote, No, that's not the case, Lord Wapple. The man on the other end of the phone stuttered a little when he heard this, and then quickly said, I found a very beautiful blue-haired girl on that ship. She is the type you like, Lord King. Nani. Wapple, who was still listless, immediately jumped up from the throne with excitement and grinned. A pretty blue-haired girl. Ha 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 ha. It really reminds me of a cute little ghost. After they get to the island, you can arrange a crime and take them down directly. I'll get down from the castle right away. Quote, yes. As the ship got closer and closer to Segu Island, everyone suddenly felt a biting chill coming. Squeak. Compared to Blackbeard, who was still wearing a black captain's cloak, shirtless and wearing a pair of black trousers and a white belt, Vivi had already changed into a winter coat. She looked at Fanoka, Badgers and Ikaram who were shivering from the cold and smiled. Didn't I tell you before? This Segu Island is a winter island. It is in winter almost all year round and is covered by the university. Fortunately, I asked Maya to prepare some winter clothes for us before leaving the island. You should go change quickly. Quote, wow. Hearing this, Fanoka, Badgies and Ikaram rushed into the cabin immediately, their voices still floating on the deck. Thank you, Your Highness Vivi. Thank you. Waiahaha, Vivi is indeed attentive. Seeing the three people rushing into the cabin, Vivi walked up to Blackbeard in surprise and said, Master Teach, aren't you going to change your clothes? Thief ha ha ha. Blackbeard took a sip of wine and smiled. It doesn't matter. With my physical strength, this level of cold won't affect me. Vivi was shocked for a while and then sighed. As expected of Master Teach, are you so strong that you can ignore this level of cold? As soon as she finished speaking, Vivi was surprised and said, Hey, it seems like there are a lot of people at the port. It seems they have discovered us. When Blackbeard heard this, his emotions spread directly, and soon a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. By the way, Vivi, have you been to this island? No, it's my first time here too. Vivi looked at Blackbeard in surprise and said, Why did Master Teach say that? Blackbeard shrugged and said, Of course it's because these guys are here to catch you. Vivi tilted her head and looked at Blackbeard with a face full of shock and confusion. Catch me? Why, don't you know how good-looking you are? Blackbeard looked up and down Vivi's figure maliciously and said with a smile. Girls like you are the favorites of the royal family and nobles. If you were in an underground auction house, you'd be beaten to death. Master Teach, what are you talking about? Vivi's pretty face turned red, she rolled her eyes at him, and said with a smile. Then I'll just take it as your compliment, but I'm your crew member. Captain Teach, you will protect me, right? Blackbeard smiled evilly and said, Of course, then you are my forbidden wife, how could you allow others to get involved? Bah. Vivi rolled her eyes. While they were teasing each other here, 200 to 300 soldiers holding muskets were already trotting towards here from the other side of the pier. The leader was a man wearing an orange fur cape and an afro. He held a loudspeaker and shouted at Blackbeard's ship. Warning, white sailing ships over there, you have violated the laws of our drum kingdom. Either hand over the blue-haired girl to plead guilty and leave, or you all stay and become slaves. Wow. The residents of the Drum Kingdom at the port immediately caused an uproar after hearing the words of the man with the afro. What? Is someone going to be in trouble again? Which family's child is it? It's a ship I haven't seen before, it seems to be an outsider. A foreigner. You were targeted by that guy from Chromamon. What a tragedy. Hey, the sea is so vast. If this continues, our Drum Kingdom will hit the iron plate sooner or later. Who says otherwise? Alabasta has a Shichibukai patron saint, but we only have such a cruel king. Shish, do you want to die? Keep your voice down. Quote. The comments of the people around him all reached Blackbeard's ears. In his previous life, he only had a brief understanding of Wapple through the perspective of Luffy and the others, and that was from the perspective of a shonen romance, so it wouldn't be so cruel. According to the news now heard from the ordinary people of the Drum Kingdom in these ports, the damage this Wapple has caused to this country seems to be much more serious than what he saw in his previous life. Tisk. Just right. If I take action soon, the guilt in my heart will not be so serious. Hey, I'm such a good person. People of the Drum Kingdom, let me save you. But it's really ironic when you think about it. In the plot of the previous life, Blackbeard once destroyed the country. Tisk. There is really a sense of fate. Boom. Just as Blackbeard was thinking about this, the cabin door was immediately opened, and Vanoka and Badgers rushed out. Is there an enemy invasion? Ha 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 ha, Captain Teach, I seem to have heard that someone is trying to take advantage of Her Majesty Vivi of our Blackbeard pirates. Let me take action this time. By the way, I can test the results of my training. Blackbeard glanced at the two of them and shook his head. Forget it, you are making too much noise. It's better for me to do it and make a quick decision. Don't forget what we came here for. It's too difficult to find the ship's doctor when you look at it. Who will take care of the hidden injuries on your body? Quote. Upon hearing this, Badgers and Vanoka immediately shut up. No matter how stupid they are, they know that even though they have made great progress through practicing so ferociously before, they will definitely leave a lot of hidden wounds on their bodies. The meat of sea kings can only increase their energy and enhance their physical strength, but cannot cure dark wounds. Shave. Aha. After Blackbeard finished speaking, his figure had disappeared on the ship. When he reappeared, he was already more than 10 meters away from the 200 to 300 Drum Kingdom soldiers. Crash. The hundreds of soldiers and the cadre named Chromamon were all startled by the sudden appearance of Blackbeard. They had just seen this tall guy nearly 100 meters away. Now he came in front of them, causing everyone to stop immediately. As a Grand Line country, although they are not strong, they still have some experience. Being able to do this kind of thing, coupled with the opponent's height of more than 3 meters, you can see that he is a master who is not easy to mess with. Did they really hit the wall this time? Who are you? Tell me your name. Chromamon pointed at Blackbeard in front of him and shouted with a look of guilt. Are you worthy of letting Lousy sign up? Go and feel the pain in the endless darkness. Ha 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 ha. Blackbeard smiled disdainfully, then clapped his hands and shouted. Darkness. As Blackbeard finished speaking, endless black air surged out from around him. Su 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 su. In just one breath, the black gas swallowed up Chromariman and the 200 to 300 soldiers in front. Oh, what is this? Why do I feel like I can't move? It seems like something is pulling me. Help. Save. As Blackbeard thought, those people disappeared directly into the darkness and were sucked into the black hole. After entering the black hole, the life and death of these people depend on Blackbeard's thoughts. As long as he thinks about it, a thought can instantly tear these people into pieces and dust with the terrifying gravity in the black hole. Su 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 su. In a few more breaths, the black air that filled the sky returned to Blackbeard's body along the ground. The 200 to 300 soldiers from the Drum Kingdom who came before, as well as the cadre named Chromariman, disappeared in place. This weird scene made all the ordinary people and fishermen at the port dumbfounded. They were all stunned, their faces full of shock and disbelief. Gudong gudong gudong. For a moment, the sound of swallowing saliva due to nervousness could not help but sound. But after the tension, there was a burst of enthusiasm and excitement. These are hundreds of people. Disappeared in just a few breaths. Am I dazzled? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Who is that man? With that kind of ability just now, is he also a powerful demon fruit power? Yes, that's for sure. Ha ha ha, those scumbag soldiers and that Chromamon have finally hit the wall. It's best to kill all those fools. That's right, whether it's a pirate or something else, I hope this gentleman can kill all Wapple and their group of fools who poisoned the people. Quote. Faced with this scene, Blackbeard was also a little stunned. What on earth did Warber and these soldiers do to be so disgusted by the people of this country? He turned his head and looked at Vivi, Vanoka, Badgies and Ikaram who were also stunned on the boat and waved. Why are you dazed? Let's go, get off the ship and find the ship's doctor. After saying that, he turned his head and looked to one side. He was carrying a black briefcase with a Sakura flower skull on it. He was wearing a tuxedo, a half-high silk hat, and a strange old man with a rectangular haircut and a kind smile. By the way, fellow countrymen, may I ask where your king is now? Naturally, Blackbeard recognized this strange old man at a glance. An old man named Harulik. An old man who wants to save the Drum Kingdom. He's also Chopper's dad. In the plot of his previous life, he still had a very deep impression of this old man. I didn't expect to meet him here. What do you want to do? Although he was frightened by Blackbeard's strength, Harulik still asked nervously. Hearing this, Blackbeard raised his hand and touched Saruluk's chest. What I want to do is exactly what you want to do, lead the way, fellow. Saruluk's body was shaken, with shock and disbelief in his eyes. He didn't understand why this tall man could see through his thoughts. Is this also the ability of devil fruit? In any case, as long as there is an opportunity to drive away or kill Wapple and the others, he does not want to miss it at all. Too many people have died in this country after Masulu's last toadstool persecution. In addition, all the doctors were captured by Wapple and taken to the castle. Many citizens are in dire straits. The Drum Kingdom can no longer stand up to Wapple and the others. He is also about to reach the end of his life. Therefore, whenever there is an opportunity, he doesn't want to let it go. After taking a deep look at Blackbeard and the others, he said in a deep voice. Follow me, but Wapple and his group are not as simple as you think. There are 2 of them with demon fruit power alone, and there are many soldiers in the castle. As Blackbeard and his party walked past the pier, the residents of the Drum Kingdom who were watching silently moved out of the way. Their eyes held a hint of fear and respect at the same time. This respectful look was naturally not looking at Blackbeard and the others, but at Sarulik, who was walking in front with heavy steps. When Sarulik said those words and resolutely agreed to lead these outsiders to find Wapple, he was ready to die. Because they knew that if these could not defeat Wapple, then Sarulik would definitely die miserably. At this moment, these residents of the Drum Kingdom felt for the first time that this quack doctor was so great. Because this man has decided to risk his life for the last hope of this country. After entering the town, Sarulik began to carefully introduce Wapple's cadres and forces to Blackbeard and the others. After finishing speaking, Sarulik, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped, turned around and looked at Blackbeard and said, Mr. Teach, after listening to this, do you still want to trouble Wapple? Blackbeard laughed and said, Harulik, who are you looking down on? Merely Wapple, not even half as good as me. Thief, ha ha ha. Badgers on the side also laughed and said, Way, ha 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 ha. Don't worry, old man. Our captain is as strong as a monster. Quote. Not only Fanoka, but also Vivi and Ikaram behind them all looked relaxed. Sarulik looked at their expressions for a while, and then remembered the scene where Mr. Teach killed the 300 soldiers and Kadri Kromariman at the port with a wave of his hand, and he immediately became more confident. Immediately, he led the way again. At this time, Vivi frowned and said, Mr. Sarulik, why do you hate your King Wapple and the others so much? You don't even hesitate to bring outsiders to kill him. Has this guy done something outrageous? It's not just a matter of anger from heaven and people's resentment. Sarulik sighed heavily. He then told what happened a year ago when Wapple's brother Musulu experimented with poisonous fungi on the people, resulting in the death of countless people. Musulu, who had been imprisoned for less than a year, was released by Wapple some time ago. It was obvious that Wapple and the others did not take the lives of the citizens of the Drum Kingdom seriously at all. This time it was even more extreme. Even many famous doctors in the country were arrested and taken to the castle, preventing them from treating ordinary people. As a result, many people died of illness because they did not seek medical treatment in time. There was even a doctor who was arrested by Wapple for treating citizens. After listening, Vivi was shaking with anger and said angrily, This Wapple doesn't deserve to be king at all. No. He's an executioner. The Drum Kingdom is a big medical country, but its citizens can't even see a doctor. It's unimaginable. It's so abominable. Quote. Compared to Vivi's sympathetic anger, Blackbeard seemed very indifferent. In the world of pirates, there are even fools like the celestial dragons who destroy a country in 3 years and use killing people to play hunting competition games. He has naturally accepted people like Wapple. It's nothing more than getting rid of it. On the contrary, he was still more concerned about his future ship doctor, and immediately looked at Sarulik and asked, Mr. Sarulik, the main purpose of our coming here is to find an excellent ship's doctor. Well, he is the kind of ship doctor who is willing to go to sea with us and become a pirate. I don't know if you know this type of person. Quote, become a pirate's ship's doctor. Cerulean fell into deep thought, and soon his eyes lit up. Mr. Teach, when you say that, I really think of someone. He was originally the undertaker of our drum kingdom. Of course, he is also a very good doctor. It's just that he was captured by Wapple and imprisoned in the dungeon of the castle for privately treating citizens. If it weren't for the fact that his horse was so powerful and Wapple wanted to tame it, I'm afraid he would be in trouble now. If Mr. Teach really defeated Wapple and the others and rescued him, I think he would be happy to go to sea with you. Quote. Blackbeard suddenly laughed. Quote, is there such an interesting person? An undertaker and a doctor. It seems that I have made a lot of money this time. If any of you die in the future, you can have him give you a good burial. Thief, ha 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 ha. Fanoka's face darkened when he heard this and said, Hey, Captain, don't say anything unlucky. Compared to Fanoka, Badges said calmly. That's great. From now on, the burial will be left to the new ship's doctor. I can't wait to see this interesting guy. Way ha 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 ha. Vivi and Ikaram looked at each other, covering their faces and shaking their heads. Cerulean, who was walking in front, saw that this group of people did not take Wapple and the others seriously at all. He was happy for his old friend and at the same time gained a little more confidence. Maybe it's not certain that this country can really be saved. Chapter 21. After being led by Cerulean, Blackbeard and his group quickly followed the cable car to the Ice and Snow Castle, one of the original peaks on Drum Island. However, their whereabouts have long been exposed. Of course, this is also the reason why Blackbeard and his party did not hide. As soon as they arrived in front of the castle, they saw 1,000 soldiers with live ammunition pointing muskets at them. It looks so dark, but it does feel quite oppressive. Standing among these 1,000 soldiers was clearly the Wapple in Blackbeard's memory, and to his left was an expert archery cadre named Jace. Among them, the one on Wapple's right is his brother Musulu, who is also the person with the ability of the germ fruit and the culprit who once poisoned the entire Drum Island. Maahahaha. Seeing Blackbeard and his group, Wapple moved his fat body and took a step forward to look at Blackbeard and laughed. You are the captain of the Blackbeard Pirates, Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach. I heard that you have good abilities and are a capable person. How about it? Do you want to submit to me? Become my subordinate. I can make you the Admiral Army of our Drum Kingdom and take charge of all the armies in the kingdom. That way, you will have countless wealth and beauties, and you will be able to get rid of the days of wandering on the sea. Not bad, right? Quote, aha. Hearing Wapple's words, Vivi and others on the side immediately turned their heads to look at Blackbeard, among whom Cerulean was the most nervous one. However, Blackbeard didn't even hesitate and said, it sounds quite tempting. However, these things you mentioned, if I kill you, don't they belong to me? Confused. Quote, way ha 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 ha, it's you as expected, Captain Teach. Badgers on the side also laughed when he heard this and said, a mere little king is worthy of recruiting our Captain Teach. He is the captain of the 0 Division of the 4 Emperor's Whitebeard Pirates. Who are you looking down on, idiot king? Quote, Fanoka raised his eyes and said disdainfully, our captain is not the kind of person who would succumb to others casually. After hearing what Blackbeard and the others said, Wapple was so angry that his face turned red. Presumptuous, bold, you pirate scum. Wapple beat his chest and shouted angrily. Shot, 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 kill them for me. Quote, bang bang bang. Careful. Seeing the frantic Wapple, Cerulean immediately exclaimed nervously. Swallow everything, darkness. Blackbeard had anticipated this scene, but with just a thought, the black mist around him instantly rose from the ground like a heavy rain, turning into a kilometer-long black curtain that stretched in front of them in the blink of an eye, and then destroyed the area with bullets. Thousands of soldiers packed in. Wow. In a few breaths, just like the previous scene on the dock, 1,000 soldiers dozens of meters away in front disappeared directly after being wrapped in black mist. Wapple, Musulu and Jess, who had hid under the gate of the rear castle in advance, were stunned when they saw this scene, with a look of horror on their faces. Woo woo woo. It wasn't until a gust of cold wind blew that the three of Wapple woke up from their shock. After they woke up, they all let out bursts of exclamations. Nani, where are my soldiers? Where are my 1,000 living soldiers? What kind of ability is this? It's too scary. Lord Wapple, what should we do now? This guy is simply a monster. In fact, it was not just Wapple and the three who were shocked. Vivi and the others standing behind Blackbeard were also shocked, and their eyes widened again. Waiahaha, even if I see this ability again, I still feel shocked. He is indeed our captain. Badgers sighed and spoke. Vivi, Fanoka, Ikaram and Cerulean also nodded in approval. Blackbeard looked at Wapple and the others who were exclaiming in front and grinned. Okay, Oka, Badgies, now it's your turn to take action. Leave that sickness fruit power to me. Wapple handed over to Badgers. Oka, you deal with that archer and resolve the battle quickly. Is that okay? Quote, of course, no problem, Captain. Badgers raised his arms excitedly. Yes, Captain. Fanoka adjusted the sniper rifle in his hand and spoke calmly. When the three of Wapple saw Blackbeard's actions, the three of them suddenly became nervous. By this time, they were no longer confident that they could defeat the pirates in front of them, and were even a little scared. But now they were in front of the castle at the top of the mountain, and there was no place for them to run. They have no way out now. Since you must do such a great job, let's take a look. Lousy is not someone to be trifled with. Super cannon. Wapple roared, and his whole body swelled up. Immediately afterwards, a huge muzzle 3 to 4 meters long grew out of his chest and was pointed at Blackbeard. Your opponent is me. How is it possible for you to attack the captain? Waiahaha, shave. Quote, aha. After Badgers finished speaking, the next moment, his height of 3.5 meters disappeared in the blink of an eye, and the next moment he appeared in front of Wapple. Nani. Wapple was also startled by Badgies, who jumped nearly 100 meters in front of him in an instant. But Badgers wouldn't give him time to react. He flexed his body and hit Wapple's stomach with a punch from bottom to top. Howkin. Buzz. Boom. As Badgers punched out, the surrounding air buzzed, as if it was fluctuating. Wapple's body bent into a crotch, and immediately his fat body flew backwards and smashed the huge wooden door of the castle. He plowed a snow ditch of dozens of meters on the ground before he stopped. Badgers rushed over again without giving him time to react. Bang bang bang. Fanoka also took action without hesitation, firing several shots in succession, easily hitting Jace's hands and feet, causing him to lose his combat effectiveness instantly. So strong. Vivi from the back couldn't help but widen her eyes when she saw the actions of Fanoka and Badgies. Usually the three of them didn't feel this way when they were training together, but they didn't expect that this move would widen the gap between them and her. Musulu did not expect that the battle situation would change so quickly. His expression changed and he shouted. Germs and umbrellas dance wildly. Immediately, Musulu jumped up and flicked his head. Countless lavender beams shot out from his hair and headed towards Blackbeard and the others, covering the sky and the sky. Puff puff. Those lavender beams falling on the snow directly dyed the white snow purple, and it was clear at a glance that it was full of poison. However, facing this scene, Blackbeard didn't even move. He just crossed his arms, and with a thought, endless black mist rose into the sky, directly wrapping the purple light beam in the sky, and then swallowed it up in an instant. What? How can this be? Then try my trick. Quote. Seeing this, Musulu's pupils shrank in midair and he screamed in surprise, but he quickly calmed down, gritted his teeth and looked at Blackbeard and the others and growled. Germs massive proliferation. Buzz buzz. The next second, a dozen figures who looked exactly like Musulu walked out of him with purple light, and then rushed directly towards Badgies and Fanoka. At the same time, these dozen people shouted in unison. Now let me see who you want to save first. I have to say that this shadow clone looks quite impressive. Blackbeard glanced at Badgers, who was about to take action, and shouted. Badgies, this clone must be poisonous. Don't let Oka come. Yes, Captain. Badgers was still very obedient and immediately stepped back. Fanoka remained calm and collected. He quickly hung the sniper rifle on his back, took out 2 pistols from his waist, pointed at the Musulu clone rushing towards him, and quickly pulled the trigger. Bang bang bang. Snapped, snapped, snapped. In just a breath, each of Musulu's clones turned into purple liquid and exploded after being hit. The sputtered snow was instantly dyed purple, and there was a strong and pungent corrosive smell. Seeing this, Blackbeard smiled and nodded with satisfaction. Ha ha ha, Oka, good job. Musulu on the side saw that his move was useless, and he roared angrily. In this case, you all just go to hell. Spore bomb. Quote. Puff puff. The next moment, countless small purple balls the size of fists poured out of Musulu's body, dyeing the snow within a dozen meters around him purple. Even a few dozen meters away will give people a feeling of hair standing on end. That's a human instinct. After seeing this scene, Cerulean immediately held his head in fear and shouted. Not good, Mr. Teach. The spores in Musulu are not only explosive, but the toxin is terrible. Back then, Musulu used this trick to wipe out almost half of the people in the Drum Kingdom. Quote. Nani, Vivi, Ikaram, Van Oka and Badgers all had their pupils contracted at the same time, their faces full of horror. Ha 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 ha. Musulu laughed crazily when he heard this, and poisonous purple spores were still surging all over his body. At the same time, he said ferociously. Herulik, you have experienced how scary I am. But it's too late to regret now. I will torture you all to death in the most cruel way. Regret it. Be afraid. Tremble. You forced me to do this. Ha 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 ha. Ceruluk's face turned pale when he heard this, and Nami and Fanoka also looked solemn. In contrast, Blackbeard opened his arms and laughed indifferently. With the black mist surging around him, he looked like an ancient demon god. Thief ha 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 ha. No bells and whistles, no worries. Just gravel, not half as good as me. Quote. At this time, Blackbeard's state made Musulu, who looked extremely scary before, seem to have become much docile. The next moment, Blackbeard grinned a big white fang, raised the palm of his right hand full of black energy and pointed it at the distant Musulu in the void. Universal pull. Whoosh. What? In just one breath, Musulu felt his body fly towards Blackbeard uncontrollably. Snapped. But before Musulu could react, Blackbeard had already pinched his neck, and he was lifted in the air like a rag doll. However, what really shocked him was more than that. When Blackbeard had just choked him, Musulu was still laughing wildly and roaring. Ha ha ha. Originally I didn't know how to deal with you. I didn't expect that you stupid guy would dare to let me get close to you. Die to me. Ha 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 ha. Spore bomb, blow it up for me. Quote. Call. Musulu's arrogant voice still echoed under the sky, but after a gust of wind blew by, nothing happened. Musulu himself was stunned. A stream of snot flowed from his nostrils, and cold sweat began to break out on his forehead. Soon, he forced a smile and shouted. Spore bomb, blow it up for me. However, nothing happened. PFF'd. Vivi in the back couldn't help but hold her stomach and laugh out loud when she saw this scene. Just don't explode and look back for yourself. No, how is that possible? Musulu was sweating profusely at this time, and he turned his head with difficulty to look at the spore bombs he had condensed before. But at this look, Musulu's pupils suddenly shrank, and his face was filled with horror. Because those huge purple spore bombs were slowly decomposing and gradually dissipated in the air. And when he tried to condense the spore bomb again, Musulu was horrified to find that he couldn't use his ability at all. No, impossible, absolutely impossible. How could my powers fail? Well, cough cough cough. But Musulu's hoarse roar was cut off instantly, followed by a violent cough. Immediately, he heard the devil-like laughter coming from his ears. Thief ha 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 ha. Nothing is impossible. Lousy's ability is Devil Fruit's nemesis. As long as a person with abilities is caught by me, no matter what abilities he possesses, they will be ineffective instantly. Never mind. Lousy is also tired of playing. Give me a good sleep first. Quote. After saying that, Blackbeard pinched Musulu's palm and instantly a purple-black airflow surged, directly slamming Musulu to the ground. Boom. After a violent earthquake, a large pit with a diameter of more than 10 meters sunk into the ground. At this time, Musulu's mouth was full of broken teeth and his face was bloody. He rolled his eyes and passed out. At the same time, inside the castle, Badgers also dragged out Wapple, who had been beaten unconscious by him. Way ha 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 ha. Captain, what are we going to do with this guy? Killed directly. Quote. Blackbeard waved to Ikaram and said. Ikaram, put seastone handcuffs on them both first. I will have use for these two guys later. Yes, Captain. Ikaram immediately ran over and put seastone handcuffs on Wapple and Emsaru. Captain, what about this guy? Fan Oka looked at Jace lying on the ground in fear in the distance and pursed his lips. Leave it to the people of this country to handle it themselves. It just gives them a channel to vent. Blackbeard waved his hand. He was not interested in solving this kind of garbage. After waving his hand, he walked straight into the castle. Harulik, where is the doctor you mentioned being held? Come and lead the way. Ah, yes, Lord Blackbeard. Sarulik finally woke up from the shock at this time. He never thought that Wapple and Musulu, two beings that were too powerful for them to look directly at, would be solved so easily. He was still a little confused for a while. These people are really too strong. Although he was shocked in his heart, Sarulik immediately ran to the front and started leading the way. Soon, under the leadership of Sarulik, Blackbeard and the others arrived at the underground prison below the castle. Crunch. As soon as they entered the prison on the underground floor, Sarulik, who was walking in front, exclaimed, "Dalton, why are you locked up here?" Blackbeard and the others heard the words and followed Sarulik's voice. Soon, they saw a strong man wearing a green fur coat sitting listlessly in the corner. After hearing Sarulik's voice, Dalton looked up in astonishment. I was imprisoned by Wapple after he stopped him from arresting the doctors who were treating the people." Harulik, why you? Were you also imprisoned by that guy from Wapple? What a naturally evil Wapple. Quote, No, those scumbags in Wapple have been killed by Lord Blackbeard and the others. Sarulik immediately smiled and shook his head, and then briefly told Dalton the process. In addition, he saw Badgies dragging Wapple and Musulu one by one, which shocked him to the point of being speechless for a while. Can our Drum Kingdom finally be saved? Dalton looked at Sarulik with tears streaming down his face. Sarulik was also so excited that he waved his hands. Yes, Lord Blackbeard is here, and our Drum Kingdom will be saved. Lord Blackbeard is here, and the blue sky of our Drum Kingdom is here. Quote. Having said this, he paused and said suddenly, Hey, wait. Dalton, why don't I see that Poison Q guy here? Isn't he locked up here? Quote. Dalton was stunned for a moment when he heard this, then pointed to the depths of the prison and said, Poison Q is too dangerous. He is imprisoned on the second floor underground by Wapple and the others. You can see him by going down from the deepest prison entrance. Okay, then I'll take Lord Blackbeard and the others to find Poison Q first, and I'll come back to rescue you later. After saying that, Sarulik nodded to Blackbeard and his group behind him, and headed towards the interior of the prison. Soon, they arrived at the second floor of the castle's underground prison. As soon as they came down, they saw a strange scene. The first thing I saw was a large light blue horse. At this time, the big horse's limbs were chained by seastone chains, and were pulled by 4 iron cables extending from all sides of the wall, spreading its limbs outward, which looked very funny. Shi Lun Ben Ben Kun Jin Kao. At this time, the light blue horse gasped rapidly when it saw Blackbeard and the others coming in. On the other side, a guy with messy hair wearing a huge black fur coat was also tied up with iron ropes and tied to a wooden stake. Poison Q. Hearing the movement, Q slowly opened his eyes. After seeing the familiar voice, he turned his head in surprise. Harulik, were you also captured by Wapple and the others? Hearing this, Sarulik immediately laughed and said, Ha, of course not. Wapple and the others have been dealt with by Lord Blackbeard and the others. What? Poison Q was shocked and said, Impossible, absolutely impossible. There was still a chance that Wapple would be defeated. But Musulu's germ fruit can poison everything, how could he be beaten? Before Poison Q finished speaking, he heard a disdainful laugh, and then he saw that the guy in the hand of the strong guy with blood on his face and rolling eyes was none other than Musulu. Are they Wapple and Emsaru you are talking about? After hearing what Badgers said, Poison Q's words got stuck in his throat midway through his words. Ta 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 ta. At this time, Blackbeard walked up to Poison Q, and with a force of his hands, he tore off all the iron ropes that tied him, and immediately grinned under the latter's shocked eyes. Do you want the ability of the germ fruit? If you agree to become the ship's doctor of my Blackbeard pirates, I can transfer Musuru's abilities into your body. How? Want to give it a try? Quote, what? Blackbeard's words not only made Poison Q's eyes widen in shock, but also Vivi, Badgers and others behind him had expressions of disbelief on their faces. Transfer devil fruit's ability. Can such a thing really be done? Yeah, he. After being stunned for a moment, Poison Q burst into laughter and said, "Going to sea to be a pirate? It seems quite interesting. I don't want to stay in this terrible country anyway. Come on, Captain Teach, let me see how you transfer the disease fruit ability from Musulu into my body." To be honest, this fruit is simply born with the ability for us doctors. With this fruit, you can not only improve your combat effectiveness, but also quickly solve the disease. I am looking forward. Quote, Blackbeard laughed when he heard this. Thief, ha 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 ha. Those who have this kind of awareness are the crew members of our Blackbeard pirates. In that case, let me show you your captain's real trump card. The darkness of the stealing god. Quote, su 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 su. With Blackbeard's last low cry, the black mist around him burst out instantly, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a giant black screen that completely enveloped the surroundings. In just an instant, everyone was plunged into darkness. Buzz. Before everyone could react, they saw where Blackbeard was in front, a purple-black light shooting out from his hand and falling on Musulu. The next moment, Musulu floated into the air and came to Blackbeard. Blackbeard didn't hesitate at all. He directly raised his right hand, which was wrapped in purple-black light, and grabbed Musulu's neck, twisting it hard. Click. A crisp sound sounded in this silent space. When everyone saw this, their pupils shrank. Because they could see that Musulu, who was still breathing steadily before, was completely dead. Blackbeard's face was expressionless. With the experience of Aska Island, he no longer feels too burdened about killing people with his own hands. After coming to this world, becoming Blackbeard, and eating dark fruit, he was already ready for enlightenment. In just a few breaths, a lavender energy ball wrapped in purple-black light surged out of his body and flew into Blackbeard's palm. Poison Q. Pick it up, this is the power of the germ fruit. Blackbeard dragged the surging lavender light in his palm, and a wanton smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Under the shocked eyes of everyone, he raised his hand and swung the energy ball wrapped in purple-black light into the body of Poison Q, who was wrapped in black energy and only revealed a shocked head. Wah wah wah. After a few seconds, the darkness receded and everything returned to its original state. At this quiet moment, Vivi suddenly said in surprise. Is this okay? So soon? Blackbeard chuckled. Otherwise, what else do you think? All the conditions have been met before, so it will naturally be very fast. Huh, it's over. Q also recovered from the shock at this time and immediately felt the changes in his body. Buzz. The next second, with a thought in his mind, a lavender light glowed all over his body, and his eyes glowed purple, which looked quite mysterious. Immediately, Poison Q burst into laughter, and when his purple eyes swept across the crowd, he said excitedly. Ah, it actually worked. Is this the power of the diseased fruit? I can feel from the three of you that there are a lot of hidden wounds lurking in your bodies. It is indeed a diseased fruit. This ability is really amazing, hehehehe. Q was so excited that he danced for a while. The three people he pointed out were naturally Fanoka, Badgies and Vivi. The three of them were also shocked at this time. They had heard their captain say before that practicing like them would definitely leave some hidden wounds, and if there was no ship doctor to help heal them, their progress in strength would be affected in the future. Now Poison Q can see at a glance that it has indeed proved that the power of the disease fruit has really been transferred to him. Everyone looked at Blackbeard with shocked eyes at this time. They now understand why Blackbeard said that was one of his trump cards. This method of harvesting abilities from people with abilities is simply appalling and unbelievable. If he was conquered by the world and knew about it, he would probably use all means to hunt down his own captain, right? Exalulu. Just when everyone was in shock, several extremely dissatisfied sounds of horses suddenly came from the side. Ah, Zhuang, don't worry, I haven't forgotten you. Poison Q turned around and smiled immediately when he saw Zhuang twisting his body over there. Then he turned to look at Blackbeard and said, Captain Teach, could you please help remove the seastone handcuffs on Zhuang? In fact, Zhuang was arrested because of me. Otherwise, with its ability to eat devil fruit, it wouldn't be caught at all. In fact, Wapple mainly wanted to catch me and threaten it because of Zhuang's flying ability. Want to use me to tame Zhuang? Quote, A. Hearing this, Vivi and others immediately exclaimed. Did every horse eat devil fruit? Don't be too outrageous. Can this horse also fly? It seems to be a very good ability. What's so weird about this? My son is also a reindeer who ate devil fruit. He can still talk, but he's not as strong as my chopper. Hey, your drum island is really interesting. Blackbeard couldn't help but laugh when he heard everyone's comments. It was indeed quite interesting to see Drum Island in this way. Soon they found the key to Seastone from Wapple's body. Regarding the Seastone chain, Blackbeard did not destroy it. After all, it was considered a relatively rare item and could be used in the future. After Zhuangzhuang released the Seastone chain, he immediately spread his snow-white wings like a Pegasus and neighed excitedly, looking like a real Pegasus. Snapped, but before anyone could marvel, it tilted its head and lay on the ground with its butt sticking out. Zhuang Zhuang, what's wrong with you, Zhuang Zhuang? Upon seeing this, Duqiu immediately rushed forward excitedly. Vivi and the others also became nervous when they saw this scene. Cerulean, who was only on one side, covered his face and said, I asked you, Poison Q, when will you and Zhuang Zhuang change their bad habits? Stop playing around. Aha! Upon hearing Cerulean's words, Zhuangzhuang immediately tilted his mouth in dissatisfaction, raised his horse's head and snorted at Cerulean. Poison Q laughed and said, This is a game that Zhuangzhuang and I have been playing since childhood. What do you know? Vivi and the others rolled their eyes dumbfounded when they heard this. What kind of quirk is this? Blackbeard set his sights on Wapple. Next is the real purpose of his coming to Drum Island. It is also the only bug in the pirate world. Do you want to try it yourself? That's right, the munch fruit on Wapple's body is the only bug in the world of pirates. Because it was shown in the previous version of One Piece, the movie, Wapple's munch fruit can gain the ability to use the other party's abilities after swallowing it. Not to mention how many Esper users this munch fruit can swallow and how many abilities it can acquire. This effect alone is heaven-defying enough. Looking at Wapple's fat body, Blackbeard narrowed his eyes slightly, and the memory of Wapple and munch fruit in his previous life came to mind. As a hardcore ocean fan for 20 years, he knew very well that Blackbeard had also come to the Drum Kingdom in his previous life, and even almost destroyed the kingdom. Then here comes the problem. Why would a character like Blackbeard deliberately come to the first half of the Grand Line, purposefully come to the Drum Kingdom, and destroy it? Are you really bored? After his analysis, since Blackbeard knows the function of dark fruit, he must also know the existence of the bug of munch fruit. Therefore, the Black group probably came to the Drum Kingdom at that time to hunt for Wapple's munch fruit. Unfortunately, he never expected that Wapple would just carry the bucket and run away overnight, and would not come back even if the country was destroyed. Therefore, this possibility is very high in his opinion. Secondly, there is the problem of Blackbeard itself. In the past, various sea fan forums and forums have been arguing about Blackbeard having two devil fruit abilities. For example, Blackbeard has 3 hearts, or he has multiple souls in his body. Among them, the argument of 3 hearts is more important than the argument of multiple souls. This is because the Blackbeard pirates have a special 3-skull pirate flag, so the theory of 3 hearts is very tenable. But as someone who traveled through time and became Blackbeard, he naturally understood that Teach could not have 3 hearts. Judging from the shattered unconscious soul fragment in Traveler Space, Blackbeard should be the opposite gender with multiple souls in his body. In fact, many places in the plot of the previous life hinted that Blackbeard can only be a special existence with multiple souls. Because the demonic power in the devil fruit will only reside in the human soul. Among them, using Brook as the standard, it can be clearly recognized that devil fruit's ability can be used as long as the soul is still there, even if the body has turned into a white skeleton. Of course, the special nature of the underworld fruit cannot be ruled out, but one thing is irrefutable, that is, the demon in the devil fruit does indeed reside in the human soul. If Brook alone cannot reflect this, then looking at Blackbeard's hunting of demon fruit power can also prove it from the side. For example, Whitebeard had his abilities taken away, but Blackbeard only took away his opponent's abilities after his death. However, Whitebeard's body, whose abilities had been taken away, showed no damage. The same goes for Shiryu of the Rain, who obtained the transparent fruit in the Black group later. He needs to kill Absalom before he can obtain the opponent's fruit ability. The most important point is when Blackbeard and Ace fought in the previous life. He clearly had the ability to take away the Mara fruit, but he didn't do it. Doesn't Blackbeard want the Mara fruit? Obviously it's impossible, otherwise there wouldn't be badgers disguised in the future and going to Doflamingo to take away the Mara fruit. Therefore, there is only one truth. That's because the devil fruit's demonic ability resides in the human soul, so only by killing the opponent can the ability be sucked out of the person's body with the dark fruit. At that time, Blackbeard needed a living Ace to make him a Shichibukai so that he could complete his subsequent plan to enter Impel Down. So he didn't kill Ace, so he couldn't get the Mara fruit. From this aspect, it can also be seen that the attraction of dark fruit is not actually to attract the body of the Esper, but to attract the demonic power in the soul of the Esper. And only after catching the opponent can the demonic power in the body of the Esper be neutralized. In addition, many details of Blackbeard himself are also reflected in the world of pirates. The first choice was his dental problem. Almost every time Blackbeard appears, the positions of his 4 missing teeth change, even when his teeth are still intact. Plus Blackbeard's changing preferences. For example, in the Sky Island chapter in the Magic Valley Town Tavern, Blackbeard's love for Sakura's peach pie and his dislike of Sakura's peach pie, from the sudden change in Blackbeard's taste, all imply that Blackbeard may have different souls in his body, so their tastes will be different. All these aspects prove that devil fruit resides in human souls. And he not only has his own soul in his body at this time, because there is also a collection of soul fragments in the Traveler's Clocked space. It is possible that those were Blackbeard and the souls in his body that were shattered by Katakuri and Jin's sneak attacks, and were captured and imprisoned in the Traveler's Clock space by the Traveler's Clock who traveled with him. In a flash of thought, Blackbeard made a decision. Buzz. The next moment, the entire second floor of the underground prison became pitch black again, making it impossible to see even one's fingers. This made Vivi and the others startled, and they subconsciously turned their heads to look in the direction of Blackbeard. Immediately, they saw a look of determination appear on the resolute face of their captain. Click. The next second, they saw Wapple's neck being broken by his own captain. Immediately, under the shocked eyes of everyone, Blackbeard actually pressed the extracted munch fruit power into his chest. Can't, Vivi subconsciously exclaimed when she saw this scene. Captain, Fan Oka, Badgers and Poison Q also made a sound in shock. However, it was already too late. The scarlet-colored munch fruit power disappeared directly after disappearing into Blackbeard's body, and the scarlet light was completely gone. Just a few seconds passed, and the explosion that worried Vivi and the others did not happen. But Blackbeard didn't make any other move, his eyes still closed. If it weren't for dark fruit's black mist still floating and surging, they would have rushed to check on Blackbeard. At the same time, Blackbeard saw the power of munch fruit enter the body and immediately appear in the Traveler's Clock space attached to the unconscious soul body. The next second, Blackbeard immediately had countless information about munch fruit's abilities in his mind, and he could clearly feel that he could use all the abilities of munch fruit. Among them, there is also a bug that devours other ability users and can obtain their abilities. As of now, munch fruit is actually able to swallow and acquire the abilities of 2 espers. Whether the upper limit is the same will be known after development. If the ability limit is only 2 fruits, then you need to be careful when swallowing other ability users or fruits in the future. Of course, munch fruit does more than that. In any case, this plan of mine has been a complete success. Thinking of this, Blackbeard opened his eyes, filled with joy, which made him feel extremely happy, and he immediately opened his arms and laughed loudly. The power of the double fruits is finally available. Thief, ha 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 ha. I have also achieved dual abilities, and it is still more buggy than Blackbeard in his previous life. As long as you look for yourself properly and have all kinds of top abilities in your body in the future, then what else is there to be afraid of in this world where strength is the criterion? From now on, the competition for the throne of heaven finally has its own place. Ha 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 ha. Thinking of this, Blackbeard's laughter became even more wild and hearty. Buzz. At this moment, an extremely powerful and terrifying aura swept out of Blackbeard's body along with Blackbeard's laughter. At the same time, it rose into the sky and dispersed all the snowflakes falling from the sky. And on the second floor of the underground prison. Plop plop plop. Cerulean, Ikaram, and Zhuangzhuang all rolled their eyes and fainted and fell to the ground. Vivi was also covered in cold sweat on her forehead. She sat on the ground in a duck-sitting position and looked at Blackbeard with a look of horror on her face. Poison Q's legs were trembling, and he was holding on to his strong body as he fainted and fell to the ground to prevent him from falling to the ground with him. At this time, only Badges and Fanoka were actually standing, but their foreheads were also covered with cold sweat, and their faces were full of shock. It wasn't until more than 10 seconds later that the powerful momentum gradually subsided. Then Fanoka gritted his teeth and said in disbelief, "Conquerors, Haki." Although Teach was very confident that he could awaken Conqueror's Haki, he did not expect that he would awaken after gaining the Munch Munch fruit ability. It can be considered an unexpected surprise. Blackbeard did not leave Drum Island in the next few days, but still lived in the castle on Drum Island to familiarize himself with the fruit's power and control of Conqueror's Haki. Of course, the most important thing is that after the scale of the traveler's clock reaches one scale, the second hand still continues to rotate. Seeing this, Blackbeard immediately used this scale to improve Conqueror's Haki. It can be said that he directly upgraded his newly awakened Conqueror's Haki to a medium level. At least equivalent to Luffy's state in the Fishmen Island 2 years later. Although it didn't allow him to master the level of Conqueror's entanglement at once, Blackbeard was very satisfied. In the next few days, I was developing Munch Munch fruit while instructing Vivi and the others to practice 6 forms and double color Haki. At the same time, New World, Whitebeard territorial waters. Goo goo goo. A newspaper delivery seagull flew over the Moby Dick, and within a few minutes there were loud noises and exclamations on the Moby Dick. Ha 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 ha, this guy Teach really made a big fuss just after he went to sea. What? Come on, let me know. What happened to Teach? Am I super? First solved a Marine Rear Admiral of swordsman level. Wait a minute, what is this 7-star demonic sword? Why haven't you heard of it? A sword that can also control people's hearts. Hey, you guys are paying attention. Where's the bounty? Isn't there a bounty? He, there must be some. Here I am, Whitebeard Pirates, Captain of Division 0, Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach, bounty, 150 million Baileys. Life or death? Oh, Teach, that guy can do it. Whitebeard, who was still sleeping soundly in the cabin, couldn't help but come out and take a look when he heard the noise of his sons outside. Then he learned the news, and he immediately opened his arms happily and laughed. La, idiot, has Teach finally embarked on his own journey? Hey guys, we're having a party to celebrate that Teach guy becoming famous all over the world. Quote. Ooh, all the crew members of the Whitebeard Pirates immediately started dancing with excitement. Just as everyone was cheering to celebrate the banquet, Marco walked out of a room with a serious look on his face. Then he glanced at everyone, walked to Whitebeard and said calmly, but in a solemn voice. Dad, that guy Ace has been out of contact for almost a week. I mobilized our Whitebeard pirate group friends in South Blue to go to Battleila Island. He said there had been fierce fighting there. Although it is artificially covered up, it still has a strong smell of Mara fruit. Something is wrong, Dad. Quote, Whitebeard, who was drinking, tightened his grip on the wine jar, and his brows gradually wrinkled. After thinking for a moment, he said in a deep voice. Don't make any noise for now, I'll ask my old friends in the underground world later. By the way, you go and inform Teach. He's traveling outside now, so let him pay attention to Ace's clues. Quote. Marco nodded solemnly. Good. The first half of the Grand Line. Drum Kingdom Mountaintop Castle. Bulu. While Blackbeard was getting familiar with the various abilities of the 7-star sword, he heard the phone bug ringing while eating leaves on the side. Blackbeard, who didn't care much at first, frowned when he saw the phone bug. That's the Whitebeard Pirate's special contact number. When he saw this phone bug, he suddenly felt an inexplicable feeling in his heart. Did something happen? Moses, Teach, is there no one else around you? I have something important to tell you here. No one else, Marco, just say it. Teach, Ace has been out of touch for over a week. Nani, Ace is missing. Where did he go? That's right, Ace gave us a call back when he arrived at Battleira Island a week ago, and he lost contact completely after that. I also asked my friends to check there, and there were traces of Ace fighting. I think someone is targeting our Whitebeard pirates. So Dad asked me to give you a call and tell you to be careful outside. Especially now that you have made your Whitebeard Pirates Division 0, Blackbeard's name known. If someone really attacks Ace or targets our Whitebeard pirates, then their next target is likely to be you. Remember to call me immediately if anything goes wrong so I can provide you with the fastest support. There's nothing else to do, just pay attention to yourself and pay attention to Ace's news. If you have any information, call back immediately. Quote. Okay, I understand. Chaka. After hanging up the phone, Blackbeard fell into a long silence. One is the concern and advice given to Marco and Whitebeard. First, the disappearance of Ace gave him a feeling of world line closing. In Blackbeard's opinion, there are only two reasons for Ace's sudden disappearance. First, Kaido and Big Mom teamed up to attack the Whitebeard pirates, so they first eliminated Whitebeard's main force one by one. However, this situation is obviously impossible and unnecessary. But Auntie and Kaido would not make such a decision as individuals. Even if they want to join forces to deal with Whitebeard, it's not now. After all, they all knew that Whitebeard's health was deteriorating. For an old man like Whitebeard, who was in his 70s or 80s and was still suffering from various health problems, there was no need to force him. He might die on his own after a few years. At that time, it will be effortless to attack the White group. If Whitebeard discovers the attack on the White group at this time, although Big Mom and Kaido may not suffer any major damage, their territory designation will not be preserved. If Whitebeard is really offended and a sea earthquake hits their territory, both the 10,000 kingdoms and Wano Kuni will be wiped out. After all, Aokiji will not do good things for them. Since this is not possible, there is only one other possibility. The world government's CP agency has never given up on tracking down Roger's children. If the world government has some strange fruit-powered users, and they discover information about Port Gazdi Rouge on Battleilla Island, then it is not impossible for them to squat there and sneak up on Ace and attack him. So, is this really the end of the world line? What the hell, is Summit War going to happen again? If that's the case, then with Baituan's current overall strength, it would be like giving away food. No, we have to hurry up and find all our partners. Just as Blackbeard was thinking about this, a rush of footsteps came from under the tower, followed by Badger's excited voice. Captain, Captain, you have a reward. The first bounty is 150 million belly, you are worthy of it, Captain Teach. Way ha 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 ha, go back a few days. The second half of the Grand Line. Naval Headquarters, Marineford, in the conference room. At this time, at least 70% of Marine's senior executives were present in the conference room. Such as Akainu, Kizaru, Aokiji 3 Admiral, as well as 8 or 9 Vice Admirals headed by Garp, all appeared in the conference room at this time. Garp had just sat down for 2 minutes when he couldn't sit still. He licked his nostrils and looked at the crane opposite him. Vice Admiral said, Xiaohei, why did that guy Sengoku call us here in such a hurry? We've all been here for so long, and he, an old guy, is still showing off. Crane Vice Admiral raised his hand to his forehead. Can you calm down, you old guy? Can't you stay still within 2 minutes of sitting down? Garp pouted and said, I'm rushing back to see my grandson. That Sengoku is trying to ruin my vacation. Hearing what Garp said, the other 8 Vice Admirals looked at each other, pretending that they didn't hear anything. Akainu twitched the corner of his mouth. Aokiji looked helpless and raised his hand to scratch his head. Kizaru continued to cut his fingernails slowly. Boom. At this moment, they were kicked out of the conference room. Sengoku walked in angrily and yelled at Garp. Garp, labor and management are extremely busy every day, and you are shouting at me every day that you need to take vacation, vacation, vacation. Treat me like a human being. Quote, boom. As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped a stack of information on the conference table and shouted. I just knew that I was on vacation. I didn't even know that such a ruthless character appeared in the Whitebeard Pirates. Okay, you all should take a look at this information. Oh, did that guy Whitebeard take in another powerful son? Ha 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 ha, that guy is so interesting. Garp ignored Sengoku's angry expression and took out a piece of information from his hand and read it. Wow, others were not as optimistic as Garp. After hearing that it was about the Whitebeard pirates, they all took the information and read it carefully. Intelligence. Whitebeard pirates, Captain of Division 0, Blackbeard, Marshal D. Teach. Abilities. Demon Fruit Power can fly, specific abilities are unknown. Grandmaster 2-color hockey, suspected to be a high-level emission armament hockey. Grandmaster Marine 6 styles. Event. Asuka Island, the Grand Line G-12 Base Commander Swordsman Class Marine Rear Admiral World Dragon was easily defeated. And after taking away the ancient sealed demon sword on Asuka Island, the 7-star sword, he killed the World Dragon and rescued the 1,000 Marine soldiers controlled by him and thousands of Asuka Island villagers and the people who came here from the World Dragon. The other members of the group took shelter from the storm. Hiss. After reading this intelligence information, gasps of cold air could be heard throughout the conference room. Even Kizaru, who has always been leisurely, couldn't help but exclaimed after seeing this information. Tisk, the newcomers are really scary now. Akainu, this old immortal Whitebeard is still protecting pirates. Sure enough, we should find a chance to eradicate these cancers completely. Aokiji, Araala, this is really troublesome. Garp, ha 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 ha, this guy named Blackbeard is not bad, he can save people. He doesn't seem to be that kind of vicious guy, but that World Dragon, this guy really deserves to die. He is simply a scum of marine. Garp you, Sengoku shouted as black lines appeared on his forehead. I didn't ask you to come here to pursue this World Dragon. People have been killed, what else can we do? What we want to discuss now is, what should we do about this guy named Blackbeard? Offer a reward directly. As the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates 0 Division, how much should the reward be? The most important thing is, what's this guy's name? Crane Vice Admiral finished what Sengoku had not finished saying. Marshal D. Teach. Is another, D, about to become famous? Everyone was silent after hearing this. Even Garp didn't know what to say at this time. As Marine executives, they actually know many things, especially about the existence of the D family. After the entire conference room was silent for a moment, Akainu said in a deep voice. Since he dared to kill our Marine's rear admiral, then put a reward on him. Marshal Sengoku, are we Marines still afraid of a mere pirate? We could execute Roger 20 years ago, what about multiple Blackbeards now? Quote. Puff. As soon as Akainu finished speaking, Garp couldn't help laughing. Ha 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 ha, little brat Akainu, you really can put gold on your face. Execute Roger. It's okay to deceive outsiders, but don't deceive yourself. Quote. After Garp finished speaking, the entire conference room fell silent again. Akainu's resolute old face couldn't help but show a hint of embarrassment. He glared at Garp and shouted. Garp, you. Boom. Sengoku slammed the table again and shouted. Enough. You two give me about the same amount. Since you have no objection, just offer the reward. Whitebeard Pirates, Captain of Division 0, Blackbeard, Marshal D. Teach. Reward. 150 million belly, life or death. The meeting is over. Quote. Go back a few days. Drum Kingdom. Blackbeard looked at the newspaper in his hand, lost in thought. Badgers on the side smiled and said. Way ha 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 ha. Was the captain shocked by his first reward? This is also the first time I have seen such a high initial reward. What a pity, I also want to be rewarded. Snapped. While Badgers was chattering there, Blackbeard snapped his fingers and said with a smile. We have a target for our next partner. East Blue Loguetown. Thief ha ha ha. Badgers was stunned, and when he leaned over to take a look, he realized that his captain was not reading the reward order at all, but was reading a piece of information on the back of the newspaper. There it says, East Blue Loguetown will hold the Master of Cooking competition every 4 years. Countless chefs from all over the world will come. The mayor of Loguetown hopes to invite more chefs from all over the world to compete in cooking skills. Looking for a chef partner. Indeed, there should be a chef on the ship. Fanoka, who had been silent for a long time, nodded silently. Ah hee hee. Poison Q chuckled. You didn't even feel any trouble when the first bounty of 150 million belly was placed on you. You are indeed Captain Teach. Vivi looked at Teach with a pair of big eyes, raised her hand and said excitedly. Then the next target is Loguetown. Captain, when are we going to get rich? Blackbeard stood up, inserted the 7-star sword into the scabbard on his waist, looked at the snowy scene in the distant mountains and said with a smile. Go and say goodbye to Cerulean, Dr. Dory, and the others, and then go straight away. Time waits for no one. Drum Kingdom, Port. After saying goodbye to Cerulean, Dr. Dory, and the still very shy little chopper, Blackbeard and his party set sail directly. The next destination has been decided, East Blue Loguetown. I just happened to take advantage of this MasterChef competition to find a suitable chef over there. Just as Blackbeard and his ship were sailing from the port of the Drum Kingdom to the outside of the bay, thousands or even tens of thousands of people suddenly appeared on the ridges above the canyons on both sides. These people were all standing on the ridge in darkness, staring at Blackbeard and his ship. It's quite shocking at first glance. Master Teach, what are they going to do? After Vivi discovered this situation, she immediately went to the cabin to inform Blackbeard of the situation. Badgers and the others also looked solemn. Blackbeard's tall body had just stepped out of the cabin, and earth-shattering cheers came from the canyons on both sides. Thank you, Master Teach, for saving us. Thank you, Master Teach, for saving the Drum Kingdom. Thank you, Master Teach, for saving us. Thank you, Master Teach, for saving the Drum Kingdom. Thank you, Master Teach, for saving us. Thank you, Master Teach, for saving the Drum Kingdom. ... The voices of tens of thousands of people, coupled with the sound of the canyon, were even more shocking than the roar of mountains and tsunamis. After everyone on Blackbeard's ship heard these sounds, the solemn expressions on their faces turned into looks of astonishment. When Blackbeard, who was standing at the stern of the boat, heard this, he immediately raised his hand to his forehead, the corners of his mouth gradually raised, and then he laughed wildly. Lousy, killed your king and you still thank me, a pirate. Interesting, so interesting. Thief, ha 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 ha. Blackbeard's loud laughter was mixed with the shouts of thanks from the mountains and tsunamis behind. It was not until the ship gradually moved away that the sounds from behind gradually subsided. At this time, Badgers also crossed his arms and pouted. It's really disgusting. He's actually thanking us pirates. You don't know, but you think we've done something good. We all killed their king, so why haven't we posted a reward yet? Fanoka pushed up his glasses. Marine's efficiency can't be so slow. It's like this. There's only one truth. Badgers, Poison Q, and Vivi all asked with a smile. What truth? After Fanoka pondered for 2 seconds, he pushed up his glasses again and said calmly. I wish, not a single resident of the Drum Kingdom had snitched on Marine. Everyone was silent after hearing this. At this moment, something seemed to have changed in the hearts of everyone on the ship, but it didn't seem to happen. Blackbeard saw all this, but raised the corner of his mouth and did not interfere too much. His mentality now has already changed qualitatively from the one he had before time travel. He has his own set of rules in his mind, and his future behavior will naturally be in accordance with his own preferences. He will be happy and pleased with the gratitude of the people of the Drum Kingdom, and at the same time he will accept it with peace of mind. Although he didn't mean to help them, he helped them solve the biggest scourge of the Drum Kingdom, so he unceremoniously took away all the treasures and savings of the Wapple family over the years. As for those large ships and fleets, he didn't want them, because he couldn't use them and couldn't take them away, and he didn't have time to deal with them. Mainly because he wants to take the elite route. In addition, the Wapple family's property of more than 3 billion Baileys is enough for him to use for a long time. Therefore, this time he did not come to the Drum Kingdom for nothing. Even for those 1,300 soldiers of Wapple who dared to attack him, Blackbeard had no intention of releasing them from the black hole. Now that they have shot themselves, it doesn't matter what they have to hide. If you dare to kill him, you must be prepared to be killed by him. This is the true rule of this world. In fact, this is something Teach has been thinking about these days. After all, as a person who has traveled through time in the 21st century, one thought can wipe out all 1,300 people. This kind of ideological change still needs a process. Fortunately, with his understanding of Conqueror's hockey, that moral discomfort has completely disappeared. It can be said that this trip to Drum Island has completely made Blackbeard feel the authenticity of the pirate world and the naked law of the jungle. A few days later, Upside Down Mountain, Twin Gorges. Captain, the Twin Gorges are ahead, but how are we going to get there like this? Vivi, standing on the top of the observation basin, held a monocular telescope, looking at the lighthouse in the distance and observing the seawater flowing up and down the upside-down mountain. No, with such a strong current, it's impossible to row up there even with a rowing boat. Fan Oka below was also observing, and he solemnly agreed. That's right, it seems like we really have to cross the calm belt. That would be too dangerous. Hey hee hee, there are all sea kings there, and I don't want to be the food of the sea kings. Poison Q said with a smile while leaning on Zhuang Zhuang and drinking comfortably. Way ha 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 ha, Badgers laughed and said, what are you afraid of? Labor and management can punch one sea kings. Nani. Woo 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 woo. Before Badgers finished speaking, he saw a dark hill several kilometers long suddenly appearing on the sea level in the distance. It's not an exaggeration to say it's a hill, but it's obvious that it's not a hill, but an island whale. Boom. Vivi jumped down from the observation basin and smiled at Badgers. Badgers, what did you just say? Badgers looked at his fist, and then at the island whale in the distance that was several kilometers long. He opened his mouth and couldn't speak for a while. In fact, Badgers was not the only one who was truly shocked. After seeing this island whale, even Zhuangzhuang was so frightened that he spread his wings and flew up. Seeing this scene, Blackbeard walked out of the captain's cabin and couldn't help but said. I didn't expect to see Laboon, huh? I didn't sense Crocus. It seems that guy should be in Laboon's body now. Forget it, now is not the time to reminisce about the past. Let's go, let's head to East Blue first. Kids, after climbing over this mountain, not far away is East Blue Loguetown. That's where the Pirate King was executed. A town known as the beginning and the end. Quote. Hearing Blackbeard's words, Vivi raised her hand to her forehead and said. I said Captain Teach, our route is not right at all, how can we possibly climb this upside-down mountain? Is it possible to rely on rowing? Nani. Quote. Vivi was just halfway through her words when she felt the ship sway. Immediately, this huge three-masted sailboat actually broke away from the sea and flew into the sky. Guide all things. Then, under the exclamations of everyone in the Blackbeard pirate group, the pirate ship with a diameter of more than 30 meters rose directly to an altitude of tens of meters, and flew towards the top of the upside-down mountain with Blackbeard's cheerful and wanton laughter. Little ones, cheer. Is flying such an inconvenience? Thief ha 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 ha. 2 days later, among the storms in the sky above the sea far away from Loguetown, a pirate ship about 30 meters long was wrapped in black mist and shot out of it. After rushing out of the storm for hundreds of meters, the pirate ship descended from the sky. Then he started charging towards Loguetown at full speed. Boom. Teach was lying on the ground in a wooden shape, gasping for air. On both sides of the boat, Badgers, Fan Oka, Vivi and 2Q were rowing frantically to prevent them from being overtaken by the storm behind again. Even Zhuangzhuang has transformed into the form of a Pegasus, with 2 ropes tied to his body and rapidly beating his wings to pull the bed. Ikaram was concentrating on controlling the rudder. Call. A few minutes later, using his sense of sight, he sensed that the ship was getting further and further away from the storm group. Blackbeard took a deep breath and then smiled. Quote, it seems like we really need to find a navigator as soon as possible. Who would have thought that the short journey from Upside Down Mountain to Loguetown would take us 2.5 days? That's outrageous. I was almost killed by the storm like that guy from Golden Lion. Thief ha ha ha. Quote, hearing Blackbeard's laughter, the others nodded in agreement. However, they were all rowing with all their strength and had no intention of chatting with Blackbeard. The storm group has been really annoying these past 2 days. If they hadn't already prepared a permanent pointer to Loguetown, they might have been lost in the storm group. Half an hour later, a surprised voice came from Ikaram, who was at the helm. Captain, we've arrived at Loguetown. Oh my god, there are so many ships. Wow. After hearing Ikaram's voice, everyone stood up and looked forward. I saw a huge island appearing on the sea level, and the island's port was filled with ships of all sizes. But when Blackbeard took a closer look, he noticed something was wrong, which made him frown. Because he discovered that there were no less than 50 pirate ships of various sizes parked outside Loguetown and on the other side. And these pirate ships are already preparing to enter the port. This is interesting. As an island where Marines are stationed, so many pirates dare to come here. Hasn't that guy Smoker arrived yet? At the same time, on an uninhabited desert island near Upside Down Mountain, Smoker, a 32-year-old white hunter who had just been promoted to Marine Colonel, was holding a cigar in his mouth. He looked forward in a panic and asked, "Hey, Tashigi, how long will it take for the storm to end? Can we set sail?" When the short-haired girl in the front wearing a Marine ensign military uniform heard this, she immediately turned to a big tree and said nervously, "Well, Colonel Smoker, the storm may not stop for a while. If we set sail at this time." "Hey, who are you talking to, you?" Before Tashigi could finish his words, he was interrupted by a low growl from Smoker, who was holding his forehead. Upon hearing this, Tashigi immediately straightened his red-rimmed glasses, quickly changed direction, bowed to Smoker and said eagerly, "The Red Hole is a private Marseille. Colonel Smoker, we really can't go to sea right now. Otherwise, we might be destroyed by the storm before we reach Loguetown." Quote, I know. Smoker sighed helplessly, waved and said, "Call me as soon as the storm subsides. We must head to Loguetown as soon as possible." "Yes." Tashigi saluted and immediately ran out to look out. New World, Toto Land Sea Area. Wangwo Cake Island. In the Cake Castle, 4 Emperors Bigmom was leaning on a huge lounge chair and watching a woman with blonde hair wearing a tight white suit, knee-high heels and white silk stockings walk in from the door. The horse scolds the horse. "Stussy, what brings you here? Is there any delicious cake you want to give me?" Quote, "Hehehehe." Hearing what the ant said, Stussy covered her mouth and chuckled. "What you said, Linlin, is that we are good sisters. Can't I come and see you? But don't tell me, I really brought you a delicious cake. This is the specialty cake of the Fishmen Island." Quote, snapped. While speaking, Stussy clapped her white and tender hands, and then a dozen people came in from behind carrying huge gift boxes. Charlotte Linlin, who was lying on the lounge chair, sniffed and immediately sat up straight, with saliva dripping from her huge mouth and said in surprise, "Stussy, you are such a good sister to me. Quick, give it to me quickly. I want to eat the cake from the Fishmen Island. Delicious. Whitebeard for occupying such a nice place. Sooner or later, I will snatch the Fishmen Island away." Quote, half an hour later, Charlotte Linlin finished eating the pastries from the Fishmen Island with satisfaction, and she lay down on the big bed again. With his feet off the ground, his IQ immediately took over the high ground. She looked at Stussy and smiled. The horse scolds the horse. "Stussy, tell me, why did you come to me? If you don't tell me, will I see you off?" Quote, Linlin, I really have a little thing to ask for your help with." After hearing Charlotte Linlin's words, Stussy, who was sitting on the side with her beautiful white legs folded elegantly, also stood up and said straight to the point, "I would like to use your daughter Charlotte Pudding's abilities. East Blue, Loguetown, where the chef competition is held." A gorilla with a golden armor on his upper body and a lavender haircut yelled at the 100 or so pirate boys behind him. "Young men, divide some people into purchasing supplies and try to fill up our 30 large ships. Ah Jin, Baloo, you and Lousy go and select a dozen chefs, and kidnap them if you like them. Try your best to complete the mission before the officers stationed in Loguetown arrive." Quote, yes, the pirates roared excitedly, and then dispersed in 2s and 3s. At the same time, inside the Loguetown Marine Base. At this time, there were only a few dozen Marines among them, and many Marine soldiers were nervously observing the situation outside on the watchtower. Boom. As the office door of a Marine captain was knocked open, the latter looked at the pale-faced Marine soldier and shouted, "What's going on? They're in such a panic. It's just a Creek pirate group. When Colonel Smoker arrives, none of them can escape." No. Not the Creek pirates. The Marine soldier's face was pale. He held up a wanted notice with trembling hands and said in horror, "Report. Sir, it's the Blackbeard pirates. It's Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach, the leader of the 0 Division of the Whitebeard pirates who had a bounty of 150 million Baileys for the first time. He also landed in Loguetown half an hour ago." Quote, Nani. Plop. The Marine captain turned pale and was so frightened that he leaned back on his chair. After a while, he immediately yelled, "Go get Colonel Smoker." After roaring, the Marine captain couldn't help but shook his head and said, "It's not enough. We still have to ask the Admiral for support and report it to Naval Headquarters. Hurry. Today's Loguetown can really be said to be a sea of people." Blackbeard and his party had just stepped onto the port of Loguetown and already saw the crowds of people. Fortunately, the 7 of them, except Vivi, are all tall and strong, and they all look like they are not easy to mess with. Therefore, as soon as they walked into the crowd immediately dispersed in a tacit understanding. Otherwise, East Blue is the weakest sea area. Blackbeard, a great pirate with a bounty of over 100 million, passed by these people and no one recognized him at all. Of course, this may also be because of what Blackbeard is wearing today. A black cowboy hat, a black gold-rimmed captain's cape, a white sleeveless vest underneath, a white belt tied with a pair of black trousers and leather boots. Especially the 7-star sword on his waist is extremely eye-catching. It feels like a swordsman. In contrast, Vivi standing next to him looked very sweet. A tight-fitting bohemian white dress perfectly outlines Vivi's graceful figure. When paired with her sweet smile and long aqua blue wavy hair as beautiful as the sea, she looks even more beautiful. In addition, Vivi has been practicing 6 postures recently, which has made her taller to 1.9 meters tall. Her temperament is gentle and has a hint of heroism. Walking on this street, men and women were killed, causing many passers-by to look askance. At this time, Vivi had not seen such a lively scene for a long time, and she excitedly ran back and forth to observe the situation in Loguetown. Immediately she seemed to remember something, ran forward and suddenly turned around, with her hands behind her back, her upper body leaning forward to look at Teach and smiling sweetly. "By the way, Captain, where are we going now? Should we go to the place where the chef competition is held first? Or should we prepare supplies first?" Seeing Vivi, who is as sweet and lovely as an elf, Blackbeard felt much better. However, he looked up at the center of Loguetown and slowly said, "Let's go to the place where the Pirate King was executed first." Vivi tilted her head in confusion, then smiled and said, "Well, I'm also curious. If Mr. Teach wants to go, how about we come together?" "Oh, Exalulu, Badgers, Oka, Poison Q, Ikaram, and even Zhuangzhuang in the rear all expressed their agreement." More than 10 minutes later, Blackbeard and his group finally arrived at the execution platform where the Pirate King Galdi Roger was executed 20 years ago after asking for directions. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, Blackbeard suddenly felt the 7-star sword on his waist trembling, which made him a little surprised. While raising his hand to hold down the 7-star sword, Blackbeard immediately understood the meaning of the sword from a feeling coming from the 7-star sword. Others also noticed the strangeness of the 7-star sword, and immediately turned to look at Blackbeard in surprise. "What's wrong, Captain?" The 7-star sword moved by itself. "This sword is really magical." Bang bang bang. Blackbeard didn't say anything, but a red light flashed in his eyes, and he immediately stepped on the moonwalk and soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he reached the top of the execution platform, which was dozens of meters high. Then, under the surprised eyes of everyone around the execution square, he sat directly on it. Clang, buzz. The next second the 7-star sword was unsheathed, a strange red light instantly enveloped Blackbeard, and then soared into the sky. Immediately, Blackbeard's body immediately felt that the 7-star sword seemed to have swallowed something, and then the spilled energy poured into his body and immediately made his body feel like it was about to move. The next moment, the scene when Roger was executed 20 years ago suddenly appeared before his eyes. At this moment, it was as if he had become Roger. From this perspective, he could see the crowds of people filling the square below, as well as the familiar figures. Mahawk, Doflamingo, Gecko Moria, Crocodile, Shanks, Buggy. Look farther away. The senior executives of Marine, including Sengoku, Zephyr, Garp, Suru, Akainu, Kizaru, Aokiji, etc., as well as those CP organizations hidden in the darkness, all fell into his hands as if they had no escape at this moment. In sight and in mind. Swish. The next moment, everything returned to reality, as if the previous scene had never happened. But at this time, Blackbeard's face was filled with an excited smile. His knowledge and experience have reached a breakthrough. At least it has reached a level where it can easily cover more than half of the island. This 7-star sword is indeed his gospel. If coupled with the fact that this 7-star sword can absorb body energy and allow him to perform slashes at the level of a great swordsman, it can be said that it has improved his strength a lot. Although he is still unable to defeat the world's top powerhouse, even if Marine Admiral wants to defeat him, it is impossible. Unless he stupidly goes to fight Admiral. Even so, with the dual fruit ability he now possesses, it's hard to say whether he will win or lose. After all, his information has not been leaked yet. Thinking of this, the fear of insufficient firepower originating from the depths of Blackbeard's soul also subsided a lot. Hey, who is that? Come down quickly. You can't go up to the execution platform. Just when Blackbeard was excited, a roar of anger came from below. Almost at the same time, Blackbeard and the members of the Blackbeard pirates all turned their heads to glare at the speaker with a sullen expression. If you dare to interrupt their captain's epiphany, you don't want to live anymore, do you? When the uncle who was in charge of public security saw these ferocious faces, he was immediately frightened and turned pale. Even if a sweet and cute smile sneaked into the scene, he still couldn't eliminate his fear of these ugly faces. Oh I mean, welcome to Loguetown, I hope you have a good time. Immediately laughing, the sheriff turned around and yo-yoed. Well, this is called a wise man who knows the current affairs. When Blackbeard saw this scene, he burst out laughing and said, "Thief, ha 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 ha, look at how ugly you guys are, scaring everyone except Vivi. The harvest this time is good. Let's go to the venue where the chef conference is held. There was actually someone there who was trying to rob someone before us. If we go late, our cooks will be robbed soon." Quote, Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Why is there even someone trying to rob the chef? What's going on? When Blackbeard saw this, he didn't explain much. He jumped down and walked quickly in one direction. At the same time, the corners of his mouth raised. It was not just the chef who he had just witnessed. What a coincidence. The navigator was also found, and he happened to be taken away with him. As for the other party's wishes, come on, lousy as a pirate. East Blue, Loguetown. The venue for the MasterChef competition. Hey, who are those guys? Why did they tie up the chef? Isn't this too much? Hush, don't you know? Those guys are the Creek pirates that have become notorious in East Blue recently. Hiss, that Admiral Krieg who has 30 pirate fleets. Yes, look, that's the strong man in the golden armor. I didn't expect them to dare to come to Loguetown to rob people at this time. Marine doesn't care. How to care? The previous Loguetown Marine fleet was destroyed by the Big Storm Group when they went out to chase the pirates. Now the new officer hasn't even taken office yet. How can it be possible to win over Admiral Krieg's 2,000 with just those dozens of Marines? There are so many subordinates. That's it. It seems that this master of cooking competition can't be held. Many chefs have been kidnapped by that scumbag pirate Krieg. Quote. Blackbeard and the others had just walked to the venue where the master of cooking competition was held when they heard these words from a group of melon-eating people, which made everyone in the Blackbeard pirate group look at each other. Seeing this, Teach did not hesitate anymore and directly patted the shoulder of the person blocking the front and said, "Fellow, please excuse me, we need to go in and find someone." "Don't you want to live? Go in and find death." The civilian suddenly became impatient when he heard this, and turned around to continue reminding the guy behind him who didn't know the heights of the world. But when he turned his head, he was immediately startled by the group of people behind him. "Good guy, everyone here is a strong man over 2 or 3 meters tall. Even Admiral Krieg is considered short in front of these guys." Seeing this, the civilian immediately stepped aside knowingly. This immediately made the people around him a little dissatisfied. "Hey, why are you squeezing?" As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Teach and his group, and he immediately closed his mouth. Wow. At this time, the people around him also noticed the situation and squeezed back to make way for a 3 or 4 meter wide road. "Thief, ha ha ha." Seeing this, Blackbeard laughed loudly and led the black group members straight towards the location of hundreds of people in front. Compared to Blackbeard who just laughed, Badgers was even more arrogant. He pointed directly at the hundreds of people opposite and laughed. "I don't care who you are, but there are people among these chefs that we, the Blackbeard pirates, like. If we don't want to cause trouble, let us take away the person we are looking for first." Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. Wahaha. Wow. As soon as Badgers said this, the onlookers stared at the hole, and a burst of uproar broke out a few seconds later. Hiss, does that guy know what he's talking about? Do you really think that being taller and stronger will help? The opposite is the Creek Pirates. Hey, there's something good to watch. I didn't expect this group of people to be pirates too. I've never heard of the Blackbeard pirates. Huh, wait, Blackbeard, why does it sound so familiar? There were many civilians who didn't understand the situation, but some knowledgeable businessmen who were among the crowd watching the excitement turned pale. Looking at the backs of the black group in front of them, cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. After looking at each other, many knowledgeable maritime merchants began to silently withdraw from the crowd and run towards the port. But it was obviously too late for them to run away at this time. Because just an hour ago, the captain stationed in Loguetown had informed the 8th Marine Branch not far from Loguetown about the situation here. Nelson Roy, known as Marine Admiral, has been rushing towards Loguetown with his 23 iron chain fleet. At this time, it has appeared on the sea outside Loguetown. At the same time, the MasterChef competition venue is held across the street. After hearing Badger's arrogant words, Krieg's face suddenly sank as he was happy because he had captured enough chefs this time. The iron wall Baloo beside him immediately turned his head and roared. Which blind fool wants to die? It's just that Baloo didn't expect that he was crazy, and Badgers was even crazier than him. He curled his lips disdainfully and said, "What the hell are you? Either tell the labor and management to get out of here, or call your boss Krieg out. I want to see what kind of music I am in, dare I call him Admiral East Blue." Quote. Baloo didn't expect Badgers to be so arrogant. He was used to being arrogant and domineering. This was the first time that he was unable to speak out. For a moment, he subconsciously turned his head to look at Krieg, who had a gloomy expression on his side. Before he could say anything, Krieg said coldly, "Ajin, kill him. East Blue doesn't allow such an awesome person to exist." Jin hesitated for a moment after hearing this, and after sighing secretly, he took out 2 spherical crutches from his back and walked towards Badgers indifferently. Ta 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 ta. As Ajin walked faster and faster, the ball-shaped crutches in his hands started to spin, and without saying a word, he rushed towards Badgers and hit him on the head. "Hey, you still have some strength." Badgers just grinned when he saw this. But the next moment, under everyone's horrified comments, he actually stood there with an arrogant smile without even evading, letting Ajin's 2 spherical crutches hit his head and stomach respectively. Iron body. Everyone heard what Badgers seemed to say, and saw Ajin's 2 terrifying spherical crutches hitting Badger's body. Just when everyone thought that Badgers was frightened and was about to splatter blood on the spot, they heard 2 sounds that sounded like gold and iron. Clang, clang. What? Even Jin, who is known as a ghost man, was stunned by the scene in front of him. I saw that there was no scratch on Badger's head and stomach. He was still looking at Jin with a grin on his face. Under the shocked eyes of the latter and everyone else, he said calmly, "The strength is good, but unfortunately, it is still too weak." Snapped. Say it. Badgers directly grabbed Ajin's head with one hand and slammed him to the ground under the horrified eyes of everyone. Boom. Just the next moment, the ground under Badger's feet instantly sunk into a hole with a diameter of 3 to 4 meters, and there were countless cracks spreading outward. And the ghost man Ajin, who had a bounty of 12,020,000 belly, was lying upside down like a green onion. His whole body was stuck on the ground with no idea of his life or death. "I gave you a chance but you didn't use it. If that's the case, don't blame me." Shave. After Badgers knocked Ajin down with one move, before anyone could react, his figure had disappeared from the spot. Aha! When he reappeared in the next moment, he was already in front of Iron Wall Baloo. Finger pistol. Under the latter's stunned and horrified gaze, Jace stretched out a finger and pierced the thick iron shield hanging on his chest. PFF'd. It was as easy as penetrating paper. Laugh. Wow. Boom. As Badgers pulled out his blood-stained fingers, a blood arrow suddenly spurted out, and the iron wall on Iron Wall Baloo's chest shattered into countless pieces, and he fainted. Immediately, Badgers turned to look at Krieg, whose expression changed greatly in the distance, and sneered. "Is that why your name is Admiral Krieg?" After saying this, He paused and suddenly turned his head to look at Blackbeard with his arms in the distance, grinning and saying, "Speaking of which, Captain, do you still have any use for this guy? How about I deal with it directly?" Blackbeard waved his handle casually. "As you please." Hiss. Everyone around them gasped when they saw this scene. This terrifying guy who killed the Ghost Man agent with one move and shattered the Iron Wall Baloo's iron shield with one move was actually not the captain. So how strong does the captain of the Blackbeard pirates have to be? Just when everyone was confused, someone in the crowd suddenly screamed, I know who he is. How could such a terrifying big pirate appear in East Blue? That guy named Blackbeard. No, Lord Blackbeard is a terrifying existence who received a bounty of 150 million for the first time. Quote, hiss. Hearing this, not only all the civilians, but also Krieg were gasping frantically, almost draining the air around them. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.